Luna's laughter echoed through the conference hall, her silver eyes gleaming with disdain as she mocked Earth's primitive technology. The Deltan diplomat's words cut deep, leaving the human delegates red-faced and seething. In a flurry of anger, they stormed out, their heavy footsteps reverberating through the neutral space station. The interstellar conference collapsed in chaos, diplomats from various species hurrying to their ships. Luna strode confidently to her sleek Deltan vessel, a smirk playing on her lips as she prepared for departure. The ship's engines hummed to life, but as it cleared the station's docking bay, a violent shudder rocked the craft. Warning klaxons blared. Luna's smirk vanished as she realized her ship was in freefall, spiraling towards the nearby gas giant. The catastrophic engine failure left her stranded, her once proud vessel now nothing more than a metallic coffin in a decaying orbit. Light years away, James Cook's communication panel lit up with an emergency distress call. The human rescue specialist's eyes widened as he recognized the source. The very Deltan who had just insulted his species. Without hesitation, he moved to launch a solo rescue mission. "Stand down, Cook." His superior's voice crackled over the intercom. "We can't risk human lives for someone who openly ridiculed us." James clenched his jaw, his hand hovering over the launch controls. "With all due respect, sir, we're better than that. I'm going." His advanced rescue craft shot out of Earth's orbital station, pushing to its limits as it raced across the star system. James's eyes darted between his instruments and the looming gas giant ahead, its swirling storms a deadly obstacle course. As he entered the planet's turbulent atmosphere, debris from Luna's disintegrating ship pelted his craft. James gritted his teeth, his hands steady on the controls as he navigated the chaos. Time was running out. Luna's ship continued its deadly descent. With precision born from years of training, James maneuvered his craft alongside the stricken Deltan vessel. He deployed the rescue tether, a marvel of human engineering that Luna had so recently mocked. The magnetic grapple connected with a satisfying thunk, and James began the precarious process of towing the ship to safety. Suddenly, his sensors screamed a warning. A massive solar storm, invisible until now, threatened to sever the connection between the two ships. James's mind raced, calculating odds and options as he fought against nature itself. Inside her failing ship, Luna watched in awe as the human vessel held firm against the onslaught. The realization of her misjudgment hit her harder than any physical blow. This human, using technology she had dismissed as primitive, was risking everything to save her. As the solar storm intensified, James's voice crackled over Luna's comm system. "Hold on tight," he said, his tone calm despite the dire circumstances. "We're going to show you what Earth's primitive tech can really do." In that moment, as her life hung in the balance, Luna understood the true meaning of human resourcefulness and determination. The rescue attempt had become more than a fight for survival. It was a testament to humanity's spirit, a force that could reshape the very fabric of interstellar politics. And as James Cook battled against impossible odds, Luna found herself hoping, for the first time, that human ingenuity would prove her gloriously, wonderfully wrong. James's voice crackled through the comm system, purpose evident in his tone. "We're going to show you what Earth's primitive tech can really do." As if in response to his challenge, the solar storm intensified, battering both vessels with waves of charged particles. The rescue tether connecting the two ships groaned under the strain, its advanced alloy fibers pushed to their limits. James's fingers flew across the control panel, making micro-adjustments to keep the ship stable. Suddenly, his communications array erupted in a shower of sparks. The intense radiation had overwhelmed the system, cutting off his link to Luna's vessel. "Damn it," James muttered, realizing the gravity of the situation. Without a stable connection, coordinating the rescue would be nearly impossible. He glanced at the swirling storms of the gas giant below, knowing time was running out. Making a split-second decision, James activated his suit's life support systems. "Computer, initiate EVA protocol," he commanded. The ship's AI responded by depressurizing the cabin and opening the airlock. James took a deep breath and pushed off, his suit's maneuvering thrusters guiding him towards Luna's stricken craft. A thin tether, his lifeline, trailed behind him. The vastness of space enveloped him, the gas giant's turbulent atmosphere a kaleidoscope of colors beneath. As he approached Luna's ship, James's heart sank. The airlock had been crushed by a piece of debris, rendering it useless. He scanned the hull, searching for an alternative entry point. "No choice," he muttered, unclipping a compact device from his belt. The portable plasma cutter, a marvel of human engineering, hummed to life. James steadied himself against the hull and began to cut, the superheated plasma easily slicing through the Deltan alloy. Inside the ship, Luna lay unconscious, unaware of the human risking everything to save her. The life support systems flickered weakly, barely maintaining a breathable atmosphere. James squeezed through the opening he'd created, his suit's sensors immediately alerting him to the failing life support. He spotted Luna slumped in her chair and rushed to her side, his medical training kicking in. Combining human and Deltan emergency procedures, James administered a cocktail of stabilizing drugs through Luna's suit. He monitored her vital signs, relief washing over him as her eyes fluttered open. Luna's silver eyes widened in shock as she registered the human before her. "You... why?" She managed to croak, her voice weak. "Questions later," James replied, his voice firm but not unkind. "We need to move. Now." He helped Luna to her feet, supporting her weight as they made their way to the makeshift exit. The ship groaned around them, metal twisting under the immense gravitational forces. As they reached the opening, James realized Luna was too weak to navigate the space between the ships on her own. Without hesitation, he scooped her up, securing her to his suit with auxiliary tethers. "Hold on tight," he instructed, igniting his thrusters. They pushed off from the Deltan ship, Luna clinging to James as they traversed the void. The gas giant loomed beneath them, its swirling storms a deadly reminder of what awaited if they failed. James's suit's sensors blared warnings as they battled through the solar storm. He relied on the advanced technology to guide them, making minute adjustments to avoid debris and radiation pockets. They were mere meters from James's rescue craft when a violent tremor shook both ships. Luna's grip slipped, and she began to drift away. In that heart-stopping moment, James made a choice that defied all logic and self-preservation. He released his own safety tether. Freed from the constraint, James used his thrusters to propel himself towards Luna. He caught her arm, pulling her close as they tumbled through space. Luna's eyes met his, a mix of fear and awe reflected in their silvery depths. Using the last of his thruster fuel, James maneuvered them back to his ship. They tumbled through the airlock, the door sealing behind them as the cabin repressurized. "Are you all right?" James asked, helping Luna to her feet. She nodded, still processing the human's selfless act. You could have died," she said, her voice a mix of disbelief and grudging respect. James didn't respond. Instead, he moved to the pilot seat, his hands dancing across the controls. The ship shuddered as he fired up the engines, fighting against the gas giant's powerful gravitational pull. Luna watched in amazement as James skillfully piloted the craft, using a series of complex maneuvers she had never seen before. The vessel darted between swirling storm fronts, riding the planet's magnetic fields to gain the velocity needed to break free. As they cleared the atmosphere, James's communication panel lit up. A transmission from Earth cut through the static. "Cook, we've got a medical team standing by for your guest." James glanced at Luna, noting the surprise on her face. "Looks like you'll be getting some of our primitive medical care," he said, a hint of a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. As they set course for the neutral space station, Luna found herself reevaluating everything she thought she knew about humans. The technology she had dismissed had just saved her life. The species she had mocked had shown her compassion when she least deserved it. James focused on piloting, unaware of the profound impact his actions had on the Deltan diplomat. As they flew through the star-studded void, the repercussions of his rescue were only beginning to ripple across the cosmos. As James set a course for the neutral space station, the vastness of space seemed to shrink around them. Luna, still processing the events of the past few hours, sat quietly in the co-pilot seat, her silver eyes fixed on the human who had risked everything to save her. The rescue craft sensors suddenly blared to life, cutting through the tense silence. James's hands flew across the control panel, his brow furrowing as he analyzed the incoming data. "What's happening?" Luna asked, her voice tinged with concern. James's eyes sharp. "The solar storm is intensifying. It's causing widespread disruptions across the sector." He tapped a series of commands into the ship's computer. Communications are down and navigation systems are compromised. As they approached the space station, its familiar silhouette barely visible against the backdrop of stars, James realized the situation was far worse than he had initially thought. The docking lights, usually a beacon guiding ships to safety, were dark and lifeless. "The station's docking systems are offline," James muttered, more to himself than to Luna. He took a deep breath, his mind racing through the options. "I'll have to attempt a manual docking." Luna's eyes widened. "Is that even possible in these conditions?" James didn't answer immediately. Instead, he began adjusting the ship's trajectory, his hands moving with practiced precision. "It's our only choice," he finally said, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. As they drew closer to the station, the effects of the solar storm became increasingly apparent. The rescue craft shuddered and groaned, buffeted by waves of electromagnetic interference. James fought against the controls, using every ounce of his piloting expertise to keep them on course. Luna watched in silent awe as James navigated the treacherous approach. His eyes darted between the view screen and the few functioning instruments, making split-second adjustments based on visual cues and instinct alone. The space station loomed larger in the view screen, its docking port a dark maw against the metallic hull. James's fingers danced across the controls, firing short bursts from the maneuvering thrusters to align the ship perfectly with the port. Suddenly, a violent tremor rocked the craft. Warning klaxons blared as the primary systems flickered and died, leaving only the dim glow of emergency lighting. "What's happening?" Luna cried out, gripping her seat as the ship lurched. James's voice was tight with concentration. Power surged from the storm. "We're on emergency power now." His hands never left the controls as he spoke. "Hold on. This is going to be close." With the primary systems offline, James relied solely on the ship's emergency thrusters for the final approach. The rescue craft inched forward, guided by James's unwavering focus and years of training. Luna held her breath as the docking port filled the view screen. The ship's hull scraped against the metal frame, a screech that set Luna's teeth on edge. For a heart-stopping moment, it seemed they might miss the port entirely. Then, with a bone-jarring thud, the ship settled into place. The docking clamps engaged with a series of metallic clanks, securing the craft just as the last of the emergency power faded. James let out a long, shaky breath. "We're in," he said, the tension in his voice finally giving way to relief. As if on cue, the airlock hissed open, and a team of medical personnel rushed in. Among them was a tall, salt-and-pepper-haired human who immediately took charge. "I'm Dr. Marcus Green, Chief Medical Officer," he announced, moving swiftly to Luna's side. Despite the earlier diplomatic tensions, his touch was gentle as he began assessing her condition. Luna glanced at James, surprise evident in her expression. The human doctor and his diverse team, a mix of human and alien medical staff, worked with practiced efficiency, showing no sign of the animosity she had expected. As Luna was carefully transferred to a hovering medical capsule, James caught Dr. Green's eye. "She's been exposed to radiation and experienced prolonged low oxygen," he reported. Dr. Green nodded, his focus never wavering from his patient. "We'll take good care of her, don't worry." As the medical team whisked Luna away, James found himself face to face with a stern-looking woman in a commander's uniform. "James Cook?" she asked, her tone leaving no room for denial. "I'm Commander Sarah Wells, human representative on this station. We need to talk about your unauthorized rescue mission." James straightened, preparing himself for the impending confrontation. "Yes, ma'am." Commander Wells's expression was unreadable. "Your actions have caused quite a stir in diplomatic circles. While many are calling you a hero, others view this as a reckless violation of protocols." She gestured towards a nearby corridor. "You're to report for a formal debriefing immediately." As James followed Commander Wells, he couldn't help but glance back towards the medical bay where Luna had disappeared. He had saved her life, but at what cost? The consequences of his actions were only beginning to unfold. In the medical bay, Luna drifted in and out of consciousness as Dr. Green and his team worked tirelessly to treat her injuries. Through the haze of medication, she found herself replaying the rescue in her mind. The human she had so recently mocked had shown her a level of courage and compassion she had never expected. As the treatments took effect and her mind cleared, Luna made a decision. "I need to speak with him," she said, her voice weak but determined. "The human who rescued me, James Cook." Dr. Green paused in his work, considering her request. "I'm afraid that's not possible at the moment," he said gently. "Mr. Cook is currently in debriefing with his superiors." Luna's silver eyes clouded with concern. "Debriefing? Is he in trouble because of me?" Dr. Green's silence was answer enough. Luna lay back, her mind racing. She had misjudged these humans, and now James was facing consequences for saving her life. As she drifted off into a healing sleep, Luna knew that when she awoke, nothing would ever be the same. Same as before. As she drifted off into a healing sleep, Luna knew that when she awoke, nothing would ever be the same. Hours passed in a blur of medical treatments and hushed conversations. When Luna finally regained full consciousness, she found herself lying in a state-of-the-art medical bay, surrounded by a mix of human and alien technology. The soft hum of machinery filled the air, a stark contrast to the chaos of her rescue. Dr. Marcus Green approached her bed, his eyes kind but his expression serious. "How are you feeling, Ambassador Luna?" he asked, checking her vital signs on a holographic display. Luna sat up slowly, testing her limbs. "Much better, thank you," she replied, her voice stronger than before. She glanced around the room, searching for a familiar face. "Where is James Cook? I need to speak with him." Dr. Green's expression tightened almost imperceptibly. "I'm afraid that's not possible at the moment. Mr. Cook is currently in debriefing with his superiors." Luna's silver eyes narrowed. "Debriefing? Is he in trouble because of me?" The doctor's silence confirmed her fears. Luna swung her legs over the side of the bed, ignoring Dr. Green's protests. "I need to see him. Now." "Ambassador, please," Dr. Green urged. "You've only just recovered. You need rest." But Luna was already on her feet, her dedication evident in every movement. "What I need, doctor, is to set things right." Without waiting for a response, Luna strode out of the medical bay, her silver hair trailing behind her like a comet's tail. She navigated the station's corridors with purpose, her diplomat's training kicking in as she sought out the command center. As she approached the central hub of the station, Luna could hear Ray's voices coming from within. She paused at the entrance, listening to the heated debate taking place inside. "Cannot allow this breach of protocol to go unpunished. A gruff voice insisted. But consider the circumstances. Another voice countered. Surely humanitarian concerns outweigh bureaucratic regulations? Luna recognized the second speaker as Ambassador Zorn, a respected Zillion mediator known for his impartiality in interstellar disputes. Taking a deep breath, she stepped into the room. The assembled diplomats fell silent, their varied expressions ranging from surprise to concern. Luna stood tall, her silver eyes scanning the room before settling on Ambassador Zorn. "Esteemed colleagues," she began, her voice clear and steady, "I believe I can offer some insight into the matter at hand." Ambassador Zorn nodded, gesturing for her to continue. Luna moved to the center of the room, acutely aware of the weight of every eye upon her. "Just hours ago, I was facing certain death," Luna said, her words measured and deliberate. "My ship was failing, trapped in the gravitational pull of a gas giant. I had given up hope." She paused, allowing her words to sink in. "And then, in a seemingly impossible way, I was saved. Not by an advanced alien race, not by a cutting-edge rescue team, but by a single human." The room remained silent, hanging on her every word. Luna continued, her voice growing more impassioned. "James Cook risked his life to save mine. He used technology one had dismissed as primitive to navigate through a solar storm that would have destroyed most ships. He demonstrated skill, bravery, and compassion beyond anything I had thought possible of a species." As Luna spoke, the door to the command center slid open. James Cook entered, his face etched with exhaustion, but his eyes alert. He froze as he realized what was happening, his gaze locking with Luna's. Luna's voice softened as she addressed James directly. "I was wrong about humans. I was wrong about you. And I cannot stand by while you face punishment for an act of heroism." Ambassador Zorn stepped forward, his multifaceted eyes reflecting the room's artificial lighting. "James Cook," he said, his voice resonating with authority, "your actions have indeed violated several interstellar protocols. However, they have also challenged many of our preconceptions about humanity's capabilities and character." The room buzzed with murmurs as various diplomats conferred with each other. James stood silently, his posture rigid as he awaited judgment. Suddenly, a new voice cut through the chatter. "This changes nothing." All heads turned to see Counselor Vex, a high-ranking Deltan official, striding into the room. His face was a mask of scarcely controlled fury. Cook's actions, regardless of their outcome, represent a dangerous precedent. We cannot allow individual humans to take interstellar law into their own hands whenever they see fit. The tension in the room ratcheted up several notches as arguments erupted between various factions. Some supported James, citing the moral imperative of saving a life. Others sided with Counselor Vex, emphasizing the importance of maintaining established protocols. As the debate raged, Ambassador Zorn raised his hands for silence. "It is clear," he said, his voice cutting through the din, "that this incident has far-reaching implications beyond a simple rescue mission. I propose a formal inquiry into the entire affair, from the events leading to Ambassador Luna's distress call to the aftermath of James Cook's intervention." The proposal was met with a mix of nods and frowns, but no one outright objected. Commander Sarah Wells, who had been observing silently from the sidelines, stepped forward. "Until this inquiry is concluded," she announced, her voice brooking no argument, "James Cook will be placed on restricted duty. Ambassador Luna, we request that you remain on the station as a key witness." As the diplomats began to file out of the room, Luna approached James. For a moment, they stood face to face, the air between them charged with unspoken words. "Thank you," Luna said simply, her silver eyes meeting his. James nodded, a small smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "I'd do it again in a heartbeat." As they were led away to their respective quarters, both Luna and James knew that the coming days would be filled with challenges. The inquiry loomed ahead, promising to scrutinize every aspect of their encounter. But for now, in this moment, they shared a connection that transcended species and politics, a mutual understanding born in the cold vacuum of space and the heat of a daring rescue. The station hummed around them, its diverse inhabitants going about their business, unaware that the events unfolding in their midst might just reshape the future of human-alien relations forever. The station's inhabitants continued their daily routines, unaware of the events unfolding in their midst. However, for Luna and James, the coming days promised to be anything but routine. As the formal inquiry into James Cook's unauthorized rescue mission commenced, the neutral space station transformed into a hub of intense diplomatic activity. Ambassador Zorn, the Zillion mediator, wasted no time in convening a special committee to oversee the proceedings. The committee included representatives from Earth, Delta, and other major spacefaring species, each bringing their own perspective to the table. The inquiry's first day focused on establishing the sequence of events leading up to Luna's distress call. The committee members gathered in a large, circular room designed for interstellar conferences. Holographic displays flickered to life, projecting security footage from the earlier conference. Luna shifted uncomfortably in her seat as she watched herself on the screen, her past self's derisive comments about Earth's technology echoing through the room. The Deltan delegation's expressions hardened, the evidence of Luna's actions clearly causing them discomfort. As the footage played, James glanced at Luna, noting the regret etched on her face. He wanted to offer some words of comfort, but knew that now was not the time. The inquiry progressed, with various witnesses called to provide testimony. Suddenly, a new face entered the proceedings, a tall, broad-shouldered man with a commanding presence. Captain Marcus Blackwood, Earth Space Rescue Corps, he announced, his voice carrying authority that silenced the murmurs in the room. James straightened in his seat, recognizing his commanding officer. Captain Blackwood's arrival added a new dimension to the human perspective in the proceedings. As the inquiry continued, Luna found herself summoned for a medical evaluation to assess any lingering effects from her ordeal. Dr. Marcus Green led her to a separate medical bay, outfitted with advanced diagnostic equipment. "Please lie still, Ambassador," Dr. Green instructed as he initiated a brain scan. Luna complied, her silver eyes fixed on the ceiling as the scanner hummed to life. After several minutes, Dr. Green's brow furrowed as he studied the results. "That's interesting," he muttered, leaning closer to the holographic display. "What is it?" Luna asked, sitting up. Dr. Green turned to her, his expression a mix of curiosity and concern. "Your brain scans reveal a unique neural structure. It appears that Deltans have a biological predisposition that makes you susceptible to cognitive biases against unfamiliar technologies." Luna's eyes widened as she processed this information. "Are you saying my prejudice against human technology was hardwired?" Before Dr. Green could respond, the medical bay's door slid open, revealing a tall, slender woman with striking green eyes and auburn hair. "Forgive my intrusion," she said, her voice carrying a hint of excitement. "I'm Dr. Ilara Voss, xenobiologist. I couldn't help but overhear. This finding could have significant implications for interspecies relations." As news of this discovery spread through the station, the inquiry took an unexpected turn. James was called to testify, and he stood before the committee, his posture straight and his gaze steady. With a gesture, James activated the room's holographic projectors. A three-dimensional representation of his rescue mission materialized around the committee members, complete with swirling gas clouds and the precarious position of Luna's damaged ship. "As you can see," James explained, guiding the committee through the events, the solar storm created a unique set of challenges. However, by recalibrating our shield harmonics and using the gas giant's magnetic field to our advantage, we were able to navigate safely. The alien representatives leaned forward, their eyes fixed on the holographic display. Many of them were seeing human technology in a new light for the first time. As James concluded his testimony, an urgent message flashed across the room's main screen. Commander Sarah Wells stepped forward, her face grave. "We've just received word from Earth's Central Command," she announced. Long-range sensors have detected an approaching asteroid swarm on a collision course with this station. The room erupted into chaos as panic began to spread. Ambassador Zorn raised his hands, calling for order. "We must decide quickly," he said, his multifaceted eyes reflecting the concern in the room. "Do we evacuate or attempt to divert the swarm?" As station authorities debated their options, James Cook stepped forward, his mind racing with possibilities. "I have a proposal," he said, his voice cutting through the din. All eyes turned to him as he outlined his plan to repurpose docked ships, including his own rescue craft, to create a makeshift deflector array. The room fell silent as James finished explaining. Captain Blackwood nodded approvingly, while Luna's silver eyes shone with a newfound respect. Commander Wells considered the proposal, her gaze sweeping across the assembled representatives. "We don't have much time," she said. "We need to make a decision now." As the station authorities weighed their options, the tension in the room was palpable. The choice they were about to make would not only determine the fate of the station, but also have far-reaching consequences for the ongoing inquiry and interstellar relations. James stood ready, his plan in mind, waiting for the command that would set their next actions into motion. The asteroid swarm loomed in the distance, an unseen threat that promised to change everything. The approaching asteroid swarm, their mutual assured destruction. James' plan hung in the balance as Commander Wells weighed the options, her gaze sweeping across the assembled representatives one last time. "We don't have the luxury of time for further debate," she announced, her voice cutting through the tension. "Mr. Cook, your plan is approved. Initiate the operation immediately." A collective exhale rippled through the room. James nodded, his face set with perseverance as he turned to address the gathered aliens and humans alike. "I'll need volunteers," he said, his voice steady and clear. "Engineers, pilots, anyone with experience in space operations. We're going to modify my rescue craft and several other ships to create a deflector array." To James' surprise, Luna stepped forward, her silver eyes meeting his. "I volunteer," she said. "My diplomatic skills could be useful in coordinating a multi-species team." James hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Agreed. Your assistance will be valuable." As James began assembling his team, Captain Blackwood approached, clasping his shoulder. "I'll coordinate the station's defense systems to support your operation. Good luck out there, Cook." The next hour was a flurry of activity. James led his hastily assembled team to the docking bay, where they immediately set to work modifying his rescue craft. Engineers from various species worked side by side, their differences forgotten in the face of the looming threat. "We need to install a powerful tractor beam emitter," James explained, gesturing to a salvaged piece of equipment from a decommissioned freighter. "This will be the core of our deflector array." As the team worked, Dr. Alara Voss arrived, her green eyes bright with urgency. "I've analyzed the asteroid swarm," she reported, pulling up a holographic display. "It's composed of thousands of smaller asteroids, ranging from pebble-sized to small ship-sized boulders. The largest ones pose the greatest threat." James studied the data, his mind racing. "We'll focus on deflecting the largest asteroids," he decided. "If we can alter their course, it should disperse the smaller ones in their wake." With time ticking away, the modified rescue craft and 5 other ships launched from the station. James took the lead, piloting his craft to a strategic position between the station and the approaching swarm. The other ships fell into formation around him, creating a wide arc. "All right, team," James said over the comm system. "Activate your tractor beams on my mark. Remember, we're aiming for the largest asteroids first." As the first wave of the swarm entered range, James gave the command. Now! The space before them lit up as 6 powerful tractor beams activated simultaneously. The energy field caught several large asteroids, their trajectories visibly altering as they passed through. It's working, Luna exclaimed from her position at the communications array. But their victory was short-lived. Warning lights began flashing across James' console as the strain on the ship's systems became apparent. We're experiencing power fluctuations, a Zillion engineer reported, his multifaceted eyes reflecting the flickering emergency lights. Reroute power from non-essential systems, James ordered, his hands flying over the controls as he made constant adjustments to maintain the deflector array's integrity. Luna proved her worth in these tense moments, relaying James' orders to the multi-species crew with clarity and calm. Her diplomatic training allowed her to bridge communication gaps effortlessly, ensuring the operation ran as smoothly as possible despite the mounting pressure. As they battled the swarm, a massive asteroid, dwarfing all others they had encountered, emerged from the chaos. James' heart sank as he realized their current strategy wouldn't be enough to divert it. That thing's too big for the array, he muttered, his mind racing through possibilities. Then an idea struck him. Risky, potentially suicidal, but their only chance. Everyone, maintain your positions, James commanded. I'm breaking formation to engage the large one directly. Before anyone could protest, James disengaged from the array, piloting his rescue craft straight toward the enormous asteroid. He pushed the engines to their limit, closing the distance rapidly. James, what are you doing? Luna's voice crackled over the comm, a note of fear evident in her tone. What I have to, James replied, his fist tight as he lined up his approach. If I can latch onto it with our main tractor beam at close range, I might be able to alter its course enough to miss the station. As James closed in on the asteroid, he activated the powerful tractor beam emitter. The energy field lashed out, connecting with the massive rock. Immediately, James' ship groaned under the strain, warning alarms blaring throughout the cockpit. Come on, James grunted, fighting the controls as he poured every ounce of power into the tractor beam. The asteroid's trajectory began to shift, agonizingly slowly at first, then with increasing speed. From the other ships, the multi-species crew watched in awe as the human they had once dismissed as primitive now stood as their last line of defense against destruction. The rescue craft, dwarfed by the enormous asteroid, seemed to dance on the edge of annihilation as James fought to redirect its course. Sparks flew from overloading consoles, and the ship's structure creaked ominously. James knew he was pushing the craft far beyond its design limits, but he couldn't relent. The fate of the station and everyone on it hung in the balance. As the asteroid's new trajectory began to take it clear of the station, a new alarm sounded. The rescue craft's power core was reaching critical levels. James realized with grim certainty that he might not be able to disengage in time to save himself. Luna, he called over the comm, his voice strained. If this doesn't work out, tell them. Tell them humans are always full of surprises. The rescue craft continued its desperate struggle against the massive asteroid, locked in a battle that would determine the fate of the station and redefine interstellar perceptions of humanity's capabilities. Capabilities. The rescue craft shuddered violently as James pushed it to its limits. The massive asteroid slowly, but surely changing course under the relentless pull of the tractor beam. Suddenly, a series of alarms blared through the cockpit. James' eyes darted across the flashing displays, his heart sinking as he realized the dire situation. The ship's structural integrity was failing rapidly, unable to withstand the immense stress of redirecting the asteroid. Warning: hull breach imminent. Power core overload detected, the ship's computer announced, its monotone voice a stark contrast to the chaos unfolding around James. Despite the danger, James gritted his teeth and maintained his grip on the controls. He knew that disengaging now would doom the station and everyone on it. Just a little longer, he muttered, sweat beading on his forehead as he fought to keep the tractor beam locked on the asteroid. Back on the station's command center, Luna watched the unfolding drama with growing horror. The monitors showed James' ship straining against the massive rock, alarms flashing across every screen. "We have to do something," Luna exclaimed, her silver eyes wide with concern. "He's not going to make it." Without waiting for a response, Luna sprinted towards the exit. A security officer moved to block her path, but she deftly sidestepped him, her diplomatic training lending her an unexpected agility. "Ambassador, you can't dash," the officer began, but Luna cut him off. "I can and I will," she stated firmly, her voice carrying the authority of her position. "That man is risking his life to save us all. I won't stand by and watch him die." Before anyone could stop her, Luna had made her way to the maintenance bay. She quickly located a small shuttle, its utilitarian design a far cry from the sleek rescue craft James was piloting. Without hesitation, she climbed in and began the startup sequence. As the shuttle's engines hummed to life, Luna took a deep breath, steeling herself for what was to come. She had never piloted a human craft before, but she pushed aside her lingering prejudices against their technology. Now was not the time for doubt. Luna guided the shuttle out of the bay, her hands steady on the controls as she navigated through the debris field. To her surprise, she found the human craft responsive and intuitive. As she approached James' position, she could see the rescue craft literally coming apart at the seams, its hull glowing red from the strain. "James, this is Luna," she called over the comm. "I'm here to help. Hold on." James' voice crackled back, strained and filled with static. "Luna, what are you doing here? It's too dangerous." Ignoring his protest, Luna maneuvered her shuttle into position behind James' craft. She activated the utility tractor beam, a much weaker version of the one on James' ship, but it was all she had. "I'm linking my tractor beam to yours," Luna explained, her fingers flying over the controls. "It's not much, but it should help." The combined force of the two ships began to have a noticeable effect. The asteroid's trajectory shifted more rapidly now, its course bending away from the station. Just as hope began to surge through Luna, a blinding flash erupted from James' ship. The rescue craft's primary power core had overloaded, forcing an emergency shutdown. James' tractor beam winked out, leaving Luna's small shuttle as the only thing standing between the station and destruction. "No!" Luna cried out, watching helplessly as James' ship went dark. She redoubled her efforts, pushing her small craft beyond its design limits. Warning lights flashed across her console, but she ignored them, focusing all her attention on maintaining the tractor beam's hold on the asteroid. "Come on," she whispered, echoing James' earlier grit. "You can do this. We can do this." As Luna struggled to control the massive asteroid, activity on the station reached a fever pitch. Dr. Alara Voss burst into the command center, her auburn hair disheveled and her green eyes alight with excitement. "Captain Blackwood," she called out, waving a data pad. "I've made a breakthrough. The large asteroid, it's not just rock. It's filled with a rare mineral, highly magnetic in nature." Captain Blackwood's eyes widened as he grasped the implications. "The magnetic pulse cannon," he murmured. "It's our only shot." He turned to his crew, barking orders. "Get that cannon online now. And someone get Dr. Green up here. We'll need his expertise to stabilize it." As the station crew raced against time, Luna's shuttle groaned under the immense stress. Systems began to fail one by one, but she refused to give up. She thought of James, of his unwavering courage in the face of certain doom, and found strength she didn't know she possessed. Suddenly, A brilliant beam of energy shot out from the station, enveloping the asteroid in a pulsating magnetic field. The mineral within the rock reacted, creating a powerful electromagnetic aura that amplified the effect of Luna's tractor beam. With a final monumental effort, Luna poured every ounce of power into her failing systems. The asteroid's course bent sharply, finally clearing the station's path. A cheer erupted from the command center as they realized the immediate danger had passed. But Luna's ordeal wasn't over. The sudden shift in the asteroid's trajectory sent her small shuttle into an uncontrolled spin. With her systems failing and power depleted, she found herself being pulled along in the wake of the massive rock, heading towards the depths of space. Just as despair began to set in, Luna's calm crackled to life. "Hold on, Luna." James' voice came through, filled with grit. "I'm coming for you." Luna looked out her viewport to see James' battered rescue craft limping towards her, emergency thrusters flaring. Despite its damaged state, the ship maneuvered with precision, matching the spin of Luna's shuttle. With a metallic clang that reverberated through both ships, James' docking clamps latched onto Luna's shuttle, arresting its wild tumble. The two craft, locked together, drifted in the void of space, their occupants alive but far from safe. As the asteroid and its swarm disappeared into the distance, James and Luna found themselves facing a new challenge. Their ships were damaged, power was low, and life support was failing. They were alive, but stranded in the emptiness of space, with no guarantee of rescue. James' voice came over the comm once more, tinged with both relief and concern. "Well, Ambassador, it looks like we're in this together now. Any ideas on how we're going to get out of this one?" Luna looked out at the star-studded blackness surrounding them, a small smile playing on her lips despite their dire situation. "I'm sure between the two of us, we'll think of something, James. After all, you humans are always full of surprises." As they began to assess their situation and formulate a plan, both James and Luna knew that their greatest challenge yet lay ahead. But they also knew that they had crossed a threshold, human and alien working together, overcoming prejudices and limitations to achieve the impossible. Whatever came next, they would face it united. As James and Luna contemplated their next move, a flurry of activity erupted on the station. Captain Marcus Blackwood's voice crackled over the emergency comm channel. "James, Luna, do you read me? We're dispatching a rescue team. Hold tight." James let out a relieved sigh. "Copy that, Captain. We're not going anywhere." Luna's eyes widened as she peered out of her shuttle's viewport. "James, look! There's a ship approaching." The sleek form of the Nomad, a specialized salvage vessel, emerged from the star-studded darkness. Its hull gleamed under the distant starlight as it maneuvered toward their position. Commander Elena Ortiz's steady voice came through the comm. "This is a Nomad. We're here to bring you home." As the Nomad drew closer, James noticed an unusual shimmer in the space around them. "Commander, be advised. There's some kind of disturbance in our vicinity." Ortiz's response was tense. "Affirmative. We're detecting a strong electromagnetic field. It's interfering with our systems." On the station, Dr. Alara Voss burst into the command center, her face flushed with exertion. "Captain Blackwood, the magnetic pulse cannon. It's created a field of charged particles. We need to act fast." Blackwood nodded grimly. "What do you need, Doctor?" "Get me Dr. Green and Chief Technician Patel. We're going to reconfigure the communication array." As the station's brightest minds raced against time, James and Luna watched the Nomad's approach slow to a crawl. The ship's movements became erratic, struggling against the invisible force of the electromagnetic field. Inside the Nomad's cockpit, Commander Ortiz gripped the manual controls, her fingers tightening with tension. Sweat beaded on her forehead as she fought to keep the ship stable. "Nomad to station. We're experiencing severe interference." Navigation and tractor beam are offline. Switching to manual control. James watched in awe as Ortiz expertly maneuvered the Nomad through the treacherous electromagnetic field. The ship's thrusters fired in short, controlled bursts, each adjustment bringing it closer to their position. Luna's voice was filled with admiration. Such skill. I've never seen piloting like this. As the Nomad inched closer, a sudden surge in the electromagnetic field sent a ripple of energy coursing through space. The salvaged ship's lights flickered, and for a heart-stopping moment, it began to drift. Nomad, come in. James called out, his voice tight with concern. There was a tense pause before Ortiz's voice returned, strained but determined. We're okay. Minimal power restored. But we can't get any closer without risking another shutdown. James exchanged a look with Luna through their viewports. They both knew what needed to be done. Commander, James said, his voice steady, I'm going to perform a spacewalk. I'll manually attach a tether between our ships. Luna's eyes widened. James, that's incredibly dangerous. It's our only option, he replied, already moving to don his spacesuit. As James prepared for his perilous journey, activity on the station reached a fever pitch. Dr. Voss and Dr. Green huddled over a console, fingers flying across the controls as they programmed the communication array. Chief Technician Patel's voice came over the intercom. Reconfiguration complete. Ready on your mark, Doctor. Dr. Voss took a deep breath. Initiating counterfrequency now. A beam of energy shot out from the station, invisible to the naked eye but powerful enough to create a corridor through the electromagnetic interference. In the vacuum of space, James pushed off from his rescue craft, the tether clutched tightly in his hand. Luna diverted the last reserves of her shuttle's power to her floodlights, illuminating his path. James floated through the void, the tether trailing behind him like a lifeline. The stars stretched out infinitely around him, a stark reminder of the vastness of space and the precariousness of their situation. As he approached the midpoint between the ships, James felt a subtle shift in the electromagnetic field. The counter-frequency from the station was working, creating a path for him to follow. Commander Ortiz's voice came through his helmet comm. We see you, James. You're doing great. Just a little further. James focused on his breathing, each exhale visible as a small cloud inside his helmet. He could see the Nomad clearly now, its docking hatch tantalizingly close. Suddenly, a tremor ran through the electromagnetic field. James felt himself begin to drift off course, the invisible forces threatening to pull him away from his goal. James! Luna's voice was filled with concern. The field is fluctuating. Be careful. Gritting his teeth, James activated his suit's maneuvering thrusters. Small jets of gas propelled him back on course, fighting against the chaotic energy surrounding him. As he neared the Nomad, James could see Commander Ortiz through the cockpit window. Her face was a mask of concentration as she kept the ship as stable as possible in the turbulent conditions. With a final push, James reached out and grasped the Nomad's docking clamp. He let out a relieved laugh. I made it. But his job wasn't done yet. James still needed to secure the tether, creating a physical link between the Nomad and the damaged ships. As he reached for the tether attachment point, another surge in the electromagnetic field sent a shudder through the Nomad. James found himself hanging on with one hand, the tether clutched in the other, suspended between salvation and the infinite void of space. The success of the entire rescue operation now hinged on his ability to complete this final, crucial step. Task. The muscles in his arms strained as he held on to both the ship and the tether, his breath coming in short gasps inside his helmet. Come on, James, he muttered to himself, willing his body to cooperate. With a grunt of effort, he pulled himself closer to the attachment point, inching forward centimeter by centimeter suddenly. A crackling sound filled his helmet, followed by Luna's urgent voice. James, watch out. The electromagnetic field is intensifying. As if on cue, static discharges began to flicker around him, arcs of energy dancing across the Nomad's hull. James gritted his teeth, knowing he had to act fast. With one final push, he reached the attachment point and began to secure the tether. His gloved hands worked quickly, fumbling slightly with the unfamiliar mechanism. Almost there, he breathed, feeling the satisfying click as the tether locked into place. No sooner had he finished than a piece of debris, a remnant from the earlier asteroid encounter, hurtled towards him. James' eyes widened as he saw the jagged chunk of rock approaching rapidly. "Incoming!" he shouted into his comm, pushing off from the Nomad's hull with all his might. The debris missed him by mere centimeters, the force of its passage causing him to tumble uncontrollably through space. James fought against the disorientation, his stomach churning as he spun. He activated his suit's maneuvering thrusters, firing short, controlled bursts in an attempt to stabilize himself. "James!" Luna's voice came through, tinged with worry. "Are you all right?" "I'm okay," he managed, still struggling to regain control. "Just a little dizzy." As James worked to right himself, Commander Elena Ortiz watched from the Nomad's cockpit, her mind racing. She knew James couldn't stay out there much longer. The electromagnetic field was growing more unstable by the second. Making a split-second decision, Ortiz's fingers flew across the control panel. "Depressurizing airlock," she announced over the comm. "James, I'm opening the outer doors. Can you make it?" James, finally stabilized, looked towards a Nomad. He saw the airlock doors sliding open, revealing a beckoning sanctuary from the dangers of open space. "I see it," he replied, gauging the distance. "I'm going to need a push." Taking a deep breath, James oriented himself towards the open airlock. He fired his thrusters in a powerful burst, propelling himself forward. The distance between him and the Nomad rapidly decreased, but James could see he was slightly off course. "Come on," he muttered, making minute adjustments with his suit's thrusters. The open airlock loomed larger in his vision, filling his entire field of view. With a grunt of effort, James reached out as he neared the ship. His gloved hand grasped the edge of the airlock, and he pulled himself inside, his momentum carrying him into the small chamber. "I'm in," he called out, relief evident in his voice. "Sealing airlock now," Ortiz responded, her tone businesslike, but with an undercurrent of relief. As the outer doors slid shut, James allowed himself a moment to catch his breath. But he knew their ordeal was not nearly finished. Pushing himself up, he moved to the airlock's control panel and began the process of repressurization. Once the cycle was complete, James removed his helmet, taking in a deep breath of the ship's recycled air. He could feel the vibration of the Nomad systems through the floor, a reminder of the precarious situation they were still in. Moving quickly, James made his way to the external coupling mechanism. With practiced efficiency, he secured the tether, ensuring a solid connection between the Nomad and the damaged ships. "Tether secured," he reported to Ortiz. "We're ready to start reeling them in." "Understood," Ortiz replied, activating winch system now. The Nomad's powerful winch whirred to life, slowly but steadily pulling the damaged vessels closer. James watched through a viewport as his rescue craft and Luna's shuttle drew nearer, feeling a mix of relief and apprehension. Suddenly, the ship shuddered, the lights flickering ominously. The winch's steady rhythm faltered, becoming erratic. "What's happening?" James called out, bracing himself against a bulkhead. Ortiz's voice came back, tense with concentration. "The electromagnetic interference is causing power fluctuations. The winch is losing stability." James' mind raced, knowing they couldn't afford to lose their tenuous connection to the damaged ships. Without hesitation, he moved back towards the airlock. "I'm going back out," he announced, already reaching for his helmet. I'll manually guide the ships in. James, wait, Ortiz began, but he had already sealed his suit and begun the depressurization sequence. As the outer doors opened once more, James steeled himself for the dangerous task ahead. He pushed off in the airlock, using his suit's thrusters to maneuver towards the approaching ships. The electromagnetic field crackled around him, more intense than before. James could feel the hair on his arms standing on end inside his suit, a testament to the powerful forces surrounding them. As he neared the damaged vessels, James noticed something alarming. Luna's shuttle had gone completely dark, its systems apparently overwhelmed by the electromagnetic interference. "Luna," he called out over the comm. "Luna, do you read me?" Silence answered him, sending a chill down his spine. James knew that without power, Luna's life support systems would be failing. Time was running out. With renewed urgency, James reached the shuttle. Using his suit's thrusters and his own strength, he began to manually guide the powerless vessel towards the Nomad's cargo bay. Every movement was a struggle against the chaotic forces of the electromagnetic field. But James pressed on, driven by the knowledge that Luna's life depended on his success. As he wrestled with the shuttle, James could see the Nomad's cargo bay doors opening wide, ready to receive its precious cargo. He gritted his teeth, pushing with all his might to line up the shuttle with the opening. "Almost there," he grunted, feeling the strain in every muscle. With one final effort, James guided the shuttle into the cargo bay, sighing with relief as he felt it settle into place. But there was no time to rest. James turned his attention to his own rescue craft, knowing it was too damaged to bring aboard safely. With a pang of regret, he moved to detach it from the tether. "I'm releasing my ship," he informed Ortiz. "It's too unstable to bring in." As James watched his craft drift away into the vastness of space, he felt a moment of sadness. But he knew it was a necessary sacrifice to ensure their survival. With both James and the shuttle safely aboard, Ortiz began the arduous process of navigating the Nomad back to the station. The ship's engine sputtered and whined, struggling against the electromagnetic interference. Inside the Nomad, James rushed to the cargo bay, his heart pounding as he approached Luna's shuttle. The vessel was eerily silent, its windows dark. With trembling hands, James opened the airlock, stepping inside. "Luna," he called out, his voice echoing in the confined space. As his eyes adjusted to the darkness, he saw her slumped form in the pilot's seat. Moving quickly, James checked her vital signs, relief washing over him as he felt a weak pulse. He gently lifted her from the seat, carrying her out of the shuttle and towards the Nomad's medical bay. As James laid Luna on a medical bed, the ship lurched, nearly throwing him off balance. Ortiz's voice came over the intercom, strained but determined. "Our engines are operating at reduced capacity," she reported. "The return trip is going to take longer than anticipated." James looked down at Luna's unconscious form, then at the medical equipment surrounding them. He knew they were in for a long and challenging journey back to the station, but as he began to administer treatment to Luna, he felt a glimmer of hope. They had survived against impossible odds, and in doing so, had perhaps opened a new chapter in human-alien relations. As the Nomad limped its way through space, James settled in for the long haul, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. James settled into a steady rhythm, alternating between checking Luna's vital signs and monitoring the ship's systems. The Nomad's engines hummed, a constant reminder of their slow progress through space. He wiped sweat from his brow, the exertion of the past hours catching up with him. Suddenly, the ship lurched, throwing James off balance. He stumbled, catching himself on the edge of Luna's medical bed. The lights flickered ominously, and a warning klaxon began to blare. Commander Ortiz's voice crackled over the intercom, her tone tense. "All hands, report to the bridge immediately. We have a critical situation." James cast a quick glance at Luna, who was still unconscious but stable. He squeezed her hand briefly before rushing out of the medical bay towards the bridge. As James entered, he found Commander Ortiz hunched over a console, her face illuminated by the red glow of warning lights. She looked up as he approached, her eyes filled with concern. "James, we're in trouble," she said, gesturing to the life support readouts. "Our oxygen levels are dropping rapidly. At this rate, we've got less than 4 hours of breathable air left." James felt his stomach drop. "Can we increase speed? Maybe we can reach the station before we run out of air." Ortiz shook her head. "Our engines are already at maximum capacity. Even if we could go faster, it wouldn't be enough. We need to find another solution." James ran a hand through his hair, his mind racing. What if we rerouted power from non-essential systems to the engines? It might give us the boost we need. Ortiz considered for a moment, then nodded. "It's worth a shot. I'll have our chief engineer, Takashi Yamamoto, work with you on the modifications." As if on cue, Takashi entered the bridge, his usually calm demeanor replaced by a look of concern. "Commander, I've been monitoring the engine output. We're pushing them to their limits already." James turned to Takashi. "I have an idea, but I'll need your help. We might be able to squeeze more power out of the engines if we reroute energy from other systems." Takashi nodded, a spark of interest in his eyes. "It's risky, but it might work. Let's get to the engine room." As James and Takashi left, Luna entered the bridge, still looking weak but determined. She approached Commander Ortiz, her large, dark eyes filled with commitment. "Commander," Luna said, her voice soft but steady, "I couldn't help but overhear. I believe I can assist with the life support issue." Ortiz hesitated, eyeing the alien cautiously. "How so?" "Deltan technology includes advanced air purification techniques," Luna explained. "With some modifications, we might be able to extend the viability of your oxygen supply." Ortiz weighed her options for a moment before nodding. "All right, work with Sarah Green, our environmental systems specialist. She'll help you integrate your methods into our systems." In the engine room, James and Takashi worked feverishly, rerouting power conduits and reprogramming system priorities. Sweat beaded on their foreheads as they raced against time. "If we divert power from the auxiliary lighting and non-critical life support systems, we should be able to boost engine output by at least 15%, James said, his fingers flying over a control panel. Takashi nodded, making rapid adjustments to the power distribution matrix. "Good thinking. I'm also going to reroute energy from the secondary shield generators. We won't need them unless we encounter unexpected turbulence." As they worked, the ship's speed began to increase incrementally. James allowed himself a small smile of satisfaction, but he knew they weren't out of danger yet. Meanwhile, Luna and Sarah huddled over the environmental control systems, deep in discussion. "If we modify the carbon scrubbers using this Deltan technique," Luna explained, sketching a diagram on a datapad, "we can increase their efficiency by nearly 40%. Sarah's eyes widened as she grasped the implications. "That's incredible. Let's implement it right away." As the two teams worked tirelessly, the Nomad system slowly began to stabilize. The rate of oxygen depletion decreased, and the ship's speed continued to climb. However, just as hope began to grow, a new alarm sounded. Commander Ortiz's voice came over the intercom, tension evident in her tone. "All personnel, we have a new problem. The navigation system is malfunctioning, likely due to residual electromagnetic interference. We're having trouble maintaining our course to the station." James and Takashi exchanged worried glances. They had just finished their engine modifications and were about to return to the bridge when the announcement came through. "We'd better get back up there," James said, wiping his hands on a rag. "They might need our help with navigation." As they entered the bridge, They found Ortiz in heated discussion with Captain Marcus Blackwood, whose image flickered on the main view screen. Launching the Hermes now, Blackwood was saying, Lieutenant Zara Hassan is at the helm. She's our best chance at reaching you in time. Ortiz nodded gratefully. Thank you, Marcus. We'll do our best to stay on course until they arrive. As the transmission ended, James stepped forward, an idea forming in his mind. Commander, I think I have a way to help guide the Hermes to us. Ortiz turned to him, her eyebrow raised. I'm listening. The tractor beam emitter, James explained quickly. It's damaged, but we might be able to reconfigure it as a makeshift communications array. We could send a focused distress signal directly to the Hermes. Takeshi's eyes lit up with understanding. That could work. We'd need to be careful not to overload the power systems, but it's our best shot at precise coordination. Ortiz considered for a moment, then nodded decisively. Do it, but be careful. We can't afford any more system failures. James and Takeshi rushed back to work, this time focusing on the damaged tractor beam emitter. They carefully rewired circuits and reprogrammed the beam's focus, transforming it into a powerful directional transmitter. As they worked, Luna and Sarah continued to fine-tune the life support systems, squeezing every possible second of breathable air out of their limited resources. Finally, after what seemed like hours of intense labor, James stood before the makeshift communications array, his finger hovering over the activation switch. Here goes nothing, he muttered, pressing the button. A brilliant beam of energy burst from the Nomad, cutting through the darkness of space towards the approaching Hermes. The ship trembled slightly with the effort, and for a heart-stopping moment, James feared they had pushed their luck too far. But the beam held steady, a lifeline stretching out into the void. Now, all they could do was wait and hope that Lieutenant Zara Hassan and the Hermes would find them in time. As the energy beam pulsed into space, James turned to look at his crewmates. Their faces were etched with exhaustion and worry, but also with a glimmer of hope. They had done everything in their power to survive. Now, their fate rested in the hands of their would-be rescuers. The Nomad continued its labored journey through space, its crew united in their struggle against overwhelming odds. The combined ingenuity of humans and aliens had bought them precious time, but the question remained, would it be enough? Enough. The energy beam pulsed steadily into the void, carrying their desperate plea for help. James watched the readouts intently, his heart pounding with each passing second. Suddenly, a faint blip appeared on the long-range scanners. James leaned in, his eyes widening as he realized what it meant. "Commander," he called out, his voice tight with excitement. "I think we've got something." Ortiz rushed to his side, her eyes scanning the display. "It's the Hermes," she confirmed, a hint of relief in her voice. "Lieutenant Hassan must have picked up our signal." The bridge erupted in a flurry of activity as the crew worked to maintain the communications array and prepare for the Hermes' approach. James and Takeshi raced back to the engine room, fighting to keep the ship system stable under the strain of the makeshift transmitter. As they worked, the ship groaned and shuddered. Warning lights flashed across control panels, indicating dangerous power fluctuations throughout the vessel. "We're losing power to life support." Sarah's voice crackled over the intercom, tinged with urgency. "Luna and I are implementing emergency measures, but we're running out of time." James gritted his teeth, his hands flying over the controls as he rerouted power from non-essential systems. "Hold on, Sarah. We're doing everything we can down here." In the environmental control room, Luna and Sarah worked in perfect synchronization, their earlier mistrust forgotten in the face of their shared crisis. Luna's alien physiology allowed her to endure the thinning air better than her human counterparts, but even she was beginning to feel the effects of oxygen deprivation. "If we modify the tertiary air recyclers," Luna suggested, her voice strained, "we might be able to squeeze out a few more minutes of breathable air." Sarah nodded, her fingers flying over the control panel. Good thinking. I'll reroute power from the backup lighting systems to support the modification. On the bridge, Commander Ortiz surveyed the rapidly deteriorating situation. With a heavy heart, she made a difficult decision. Attention all personnel, she announced over the ship-wide communication system. This is Commander Ortiz. I am ordering all non-essential crew members to enter cryosleep immediately. This will conserve our remaining oxygen and power for critical operations. Throughout the ship, crew members rushed to comply with the order. The corridors echoed with the hiss of cryopods sealing shut, one by one. As the Hermes drew closer, Lieutenant Zara Hassan's voice crackled over the comm system. Nomad, this is Hermes. We have visual contact and are beginning our approach. Stand by for docking procedures. A wave of relief washed over the bridge, but it was short-lived. Takeshi's voice came through, filled with concern. Commander, we have a problem. The docking mechanisms are completely fried. Standard docking procedures are impossible. James, who had just returned to the bridge, stepped forward. I have an idea, Commander. It's risky, but it might be our only chance. He quickly outlined his plan to use the emergency airlocks and magnetic seals to create a temporary bridge between the two ships. Ortiz listened intently, weighing the dangers against their dwindling options. Do it, she finally ordered. It's our best shot. As James and Takeshi rushed to prepare for the emergency transfer, Luna suddenly collapsed on the environmental control room floor. Sarah cried out in alarm, kneeling beside the alien's prone form. James, she called over the comm. Luna's down. We need help. James sprinted to the environmental control room, his heart racing. He found Sarah attempting to revive Luna, whose large eyes were closed, her breathing shallow. Using his limited medical training, James quickly assessed Luna's condition. Oxygen deprivation, he muttered, reaching for an emergency oxygen mask. He gently placed it over Luna's face, watching anxiously as her breathing slowly steadied. We need to get her out of here, James said to Sarah. Help me move her to the airlock. We're evacuating now. As they carefully lifted Luna, the ship shuddered violently. Lieutenant Hassan's voice came through, tense but controlled. Nomad, we're in position, ready when you are. James and Sarah carried Luna to the airlock, where Takeshi was making final preparations. The magnetic seals hummed to life, creating a tenuous connection between the two ships. All right, James said, taking a deep breath. I'll go first with Luna. Sarah, you follow with Takeshi. Move quickly but carefully. We don't know how long these seals will hold. With Luna in his arms, James stepped into the depressurized airlock. The void of space yawned before him, with only the magnetic field keeping him from being sucked into the abyss. His heart pounded as he took his first step onto the makeshift bridge. The passage seemed to stretch endlessly, each step a battle against the fear of what would happen if the magnetic field failed. James focused on Luna's face, using her need for safety as motivation to keep moving forward. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, James reached the Hermes airlock. As soon as he was inside, he turned to see Sarah and Takeshi making their way across. He watched anxiously as they navigated the precarious passage, sighing in relief as they stepped safely aboard. Just as James prepared to signal the all-clear, a violent tremor shook both ships. Alarms blared as the magnetic seals began to falter. The connections failing, Takeshi shouted, "We need to disengage now, or both ships will be torn apart." James looked at the others, then back at the Nomad. In that split second, he made his decision. "Get to the bridge," he ordered. "I'm going back to manually disengage the Nomad." Before anyone could protest, James stepped back into the airlock. He met Luna's gaze as she regained consciousness. their eyes locking in a moment of unspoken understanding. As the airlock sealed behind him, James raced back across the failing magnetic bridge. He could feel the connection weakening with each step, the void of space threatening to claim him at any moment. Bursting onto the Nomad's bridge, James threw himself at the control panel. His fingers flew over the keys, initiating the disengagement sequence. The ship groaned and shuddered as it pulled away from the Hermes. Through the view screen, James watched as the distance between the ships grew. The Hermes, carrying his friends and colleagues to safety, became smaller and smaller against the backdrop of stars. As the reality of his situation sank in, James turned his attention to the Nomad's failing systems. Alone on the rapidly deteriorating ship, he faced an uncertain fate. But as he began to assess his options, a small part of him refused to give up hope. There had to be a way out of this, and he was determined to find it. He had faced seemingly insurmountable odds before, and he wasn't about to give up now. James took a deep breath, steeling himself for what lay ahead. He turned to the ship's computer, his fingers flying across the keyboard as he accessed the emergency protocols. His eyes widened as he discovered a glimmer of hope, a single functional escape pod. Without hesitation, James sprinted towards the pod's location, his footsteps echoing through the empty corridors of the dying ship. As he ran, the Nomad groaned and shuddered around him, its systems failing one by one. Suddenly, the artificial gravity fluctuated wildly, sending James careening into a wall. He grunted in pain but pushed himself forward, using the uneven gravity to propel himself faster down the corridor. A loud hiss filled the air as an emergency bulkhead began to descend, threatening to cut off his path. James dove forward, rolling under the closing door with mere inches to spare. He scrambled to his feet, his heart pounding as he realized how close he had come to being trapped. As James neared the escape pod bay, he heard a series of loud cracks echoing through the ship. The hull was beginning to breach. He redoubled his efforts, knowing that time was running out. Finally, James reached the escape pod. He quickly initiated the launch sequence, his mind racing as he considered his next move. As the pod systems came online, he realized with a sinking feeling that the navigation system was offline. "Think, James, think," he muttered to himself, his eyes darting around the pod's interior. Suddenly, his gaze fell on the communications panel, and an idea struck him. The makeshift beacon he had created earlier. If he could adapt it to work with the escape pod, he might have a chance. Working feverishly, James began to modify the pod systems, integrating the experimental communication array he had jury-rigged on the Nomad. His hands moved with practiced precision, even as the ship around him began to break apart. Just as James finished the modifications, a violent tremor shook the Nomad. Warning klaxons blared throughout the ship, signaling an imminent hull breach. James sealed the escape pod and punched the launch button. The pod shot out of the Nomad just as the ship's hull finally gave way. Through the small viewport, James watched as the vessel that had been his home disintegrated into the void of space. A pang of sadness hit him, but he pushed it aside, focusing on the task at hand. With no navigation, the pod drifted aimlessly. James activated the makeshift beacon, sending out a repeating signal into the vastness of space. It was a long shot, but it was all he had. As the minutes ticked by, James began to feel the effects of the thinning air. His breathing became labored, and his vision started to blur around the edges. He fought to stay conscious, knowing that every moment he remained awake increased his chances of rescue. In his oxygen-deprived state, James's mind wandered to Luna and the rest of the crew. He hoped they had made it safely to the Hermes. A small smile played on his lips as he thought about how far they had come, from mutual distrust to a bond forged in the crucible of survival. Through the pod's viewport, James suddenly noticed 2 points of light growing larger. Ships were approaching. His heart leaped with hope, but a nagging doubt crept in. Were they friendly, or had he inadvertently attracted hostile attention? Summoning his remaining strength, James dragged himself to the communications panel. With trembling fingers, he input a simple, repeating pattern, a message that screamed of human ingenuity and the will to survive against impossible odds. As the ships drew nearer, James pressed his hand against the cold glass of the viewport. His vision was fading fast, the edges of his sight growing dark. He fought to keep his eyes open, to see if his rescuers would reach him in time. The last thing James saw before consciousness slipped away was the bright flare of engines as the two ships maneuvered towards his position. In that moment, suspended between hope and oblivion, James Ellis embodied the very essence of human resilience, a testament to the unyielding spirit that had carried his species to the stars. As darkness claimed him, James's fate hung in the balance. His life depended on the outcome of a desperate race against time. The story of the Nomad's lone survivor was not nearly finished, but its next chapter would be written by those now rushing to his aid. As darkness claimed him, James's fate hung in the balance. His life depended on the outcome of a desperate race against time. The story of the Nomad's lone survivor was not nearly finished, but its next chapter would be written by those now rushing to his aid. The Hermes and Argus converged on James's position, their engines flaring against the backdrop of stars. On the Hermes's bridge, Lieutenant Zara Hassan's eyes widened as she spotted the Argus on her sensors. "Commander," she called out, her voice tight with urgency. "The Argus is approaching fast. We're on a collision course." Commander Ortiz reacted instantly. "Evasive maneuvers now." Hassan's hands flew over the controls, the ship responding to her touch. The Hermes banked sharply, narrowly avoiding a catastrophic impact with the Argus. The crew held their breath as the two ships passed within meters of each other, close enough to see the rivets on each other's hulls. As soon as the immediate danger passed, Commander Alexei Volkov's face appeared on the Hermes's main view screen. "Hermes, this is Commander Volkov of the Argus. We detected the escape pod. We're taking point on the rescue operation." Commander Ortiz nodded, relief visible on her face. "Understood, Argus. We'll follow your lead." On the Argus, the advanced sensor array pinpointed James's escape pod. The small craft tumbled through space, its erratic movements a clear sign of its failing systems. "Oxygen levels in the pod are critical," reported the Argus's sensor officer. "We need to move fast." Commander Volkov wasted no time. "Deploy the rescue drone." A sleek, purpose-built drone shot out from the Argus's launch bay. It navigated the debris field left by the Nomad's destruction, its engines pulsing as it adjusted its course. As it neared the escape pod, magnetic grapples extended from its body. With precision born of advanced technology and expert piloting, the drone latched onto the pod. Stabilizers engaged, bringing the pod's wild tumble under control. "We've got him," the drone operator announced. "Beginning retrieval." As the drone began to tow the escape pod towards the Argus, alarms blared on the bridge. The chief engineer, Dr. Hiroaki Tanaka, called out, "Commander, the pod's beacon is overloading. It's causing an energy surge that could breach the hull." Commander Volkov turned to Dr. Tanaka. "Options." Tanaka's mind raced, considering and discarding ideas in seconds. "We can use our deflector shields to create a containment field around the pod. It won't stop the surge, but it'll protect James if the hull breaches." "Do it," Volkov ordered. Tanaka's fingers flew over his console, reconfiguring the Argus's shield emitters. A shimmering field of energy enveloped the approaching escape pod, just as cracks began to appear in its hull. Meanwhile, on the Hermes, Luna paced anxiously in the medical bay. She turned to Dr. Elena Rodriguez, her large eyes filled with concern. "We need to be ready for James. His physiology may have been altered by his time with the Deltans." Dr. Rodriguez nodded, already preparing a specialized treatment area. "We'll be ready for anything, Luna. Your insights will be invaluable." As the escape pod was brought into the Argus's loading bay, Dr. Marcus Green and his medical team stood at the ready. The pod's hatch hissed open, revealing James's limp form inside. Severe oxygen deprivation. Dr. Green called out as they transferred James to a medical stasis pod. Possible decompression effects. We need to stabilize him now. The medical team worked with practiced efficiency, connecting James to life support systems and beginning emergency treatment. Commander Volkov watched for a moment before making his decision. "Helm, set a course to rendezvous with the Hermes," he ordered. "We'll need all hands on deck for this one." As the Argus and Hermes docked, Luna and Dr. Rodriguez boarded, rushing to join the medical team treating James. Luna's unique perspective proved invaluable as they worked to understand how James's exposure to Deltan physiology might complicate his treatment. His cellular structure shows signs of adaptation, Luna observed, studying the readouts. "It's unlike anything I've seen in a human before." Dr. Green nodded, adjusting the treatment protocols based on Luna's insights. "We're in uncharted territory here, but we're giving him the best chance we can." As James underwent treatment, Captain Marcus Blackwood received word of the successful rescue at the station. He immediately sprang into action, ordering the station's medical bay to be prepared for James's arrival and initiating a formal review of the incident. The Argus and Hermes began their journey back to the station, their engines humming in unison. In the medical bay, Luna sat by James's side, her hand resting lightly on the stasis pod. She watched the steady rise and fall of his chest, marveling at the resilience of these humans who had risked everything to save one of their own. As James's vital signs slowly stabilized, Luna's thoughts turned to the future. She knew that this incident would have far-reaching consequences, not just for James and the crew, but for human-alien relations throughout the galaxy. But for now, all that mattered was the quiet beep of the medical equipment and the promise of James's recovery. The journey back to the station stretched before them, filled with uncertainty and hope in equal measure. As the ship sailed to the star-studded expanse, the next chapter of their story began to unfold, promising new challenges and discoveries in the vast frontier of space. As the ship sailed to the star-studded expanse, the next chapter of their story began to unfold, promising new challenges and discoveries in the vast frontier of space. The Argus and Hermes approached the neutral space station, their engines humming in perfect synchronization. On the Hermes' bridge, Commander Ortiz received a transmission from the station. "Hermes, this is Captain Marcus Blackwood. We've been briefed on the situation. Our medical bay is being prepped for James's arrival as we speak." "Understood, Captain," Ortiz replied. "We're grateful for your assistance." As the ships docked, a flurry of activity erupted. Medical teams from both vessels converged with the station's personnel, creating a seamless transfer process for James. Dr. Elena Rodriguez and Dr. Marcus Green led the way, their faces set with perseverance as they guided the stasis pod containing James through the station's corridors. Luna walked alongside, her large eyes fixed on James's unconscious form. The medical bay doors hissed open, revealing a transformed space that blended human and alien technologies in ways she had never seen before. Captain Blackwood stood at the entrance, his posture straight and his eyes alert. "Doctors, we've incorporated Deltan cellular regeneration units into our existing cryogenic healing chambers. I hope this will aid in James's recovery." Dr. Rodriguez nodded, her eyes widening at the sight of the advanced equipment. "This is remarkable, Captain. Thank you." As the medical team began their work, connecting James to the hybrid healing system, Luna found herself ushered to a nearby waiting area. She watched through a large observation window as human and alien medical professionals move in a coordinated dance around James's bed. Hours passed, marked only by the steady beep of medical equipment and the low hum of the station's systems. Luna's vigilance never wavered, her eyes constantly darting between James and the various monitors displaying his vital signs. A gentle hand on her shoulder startled her from her vigil. She turned to see Ambassador Zorn, his expression a mix of concern and curiosity. "Luna," he said softly, "your dedication to James is unexpected. It's causing quite a stir among our people." Luna's brow furrowed. "I don't understand. We're friends. Isn't it natural to care for one's friends?" Zorn's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. "For humans, perhaps, but for a Deltan to form such a bond with a human, it's unprecedented. It's making many reconsider their views on your species." Before Luna could respond, alarms blared from the medical bay. She whirled around to see James's body convulsing on the bed, his back arched in pain. Dr. Green's voice carried through the intercom. "The human and Deltan treatments are conflicting. We need to stabilize him now." Luna pressed her hands against the glass, her heart racing. She watched as Dr. Rodriguez and Dr. Green worked furiously, their hands flying over control panels and adjusting medication levels. Suddenly, James's body went still. For a moment that stretched into eternity, Luna held her breath. Then, slowly, the monitors began to show improvement. His vital signs stabilized, and his brain activity returned to normal patterns. Dr. Rodriguez's relieved voice came over the intercom. "We've done it. The treatments are now working in harmony. His recovery rate is incredible." As if on cue, James's eyes fluttered open. He blinked slowly, his gaze unfocused at first, then sharpening as he took in his surroundings. His eyes found Luna through the observation window, and a weak smile spread across his face. Luna felt a surge of emotion she couldn't quite name. She pressed her hand against the glass, mirroring James's gesture from the escape pod. For a moment, it was as if they were the only two beings in the universe. The moment was broken by the arrival of Captain Blackwood, flanked by Commander Volkov and Lieutenant Hassan. "I've just received word," Blackwood announced. "The Deltan government has reversed its stance on human technology. They're proposing a joint exchange program." Zorn's antennae twitched in surprise. "This is unexpected, but not unwelcome." Blackwood nodded. "It's more than that. The Zillion Confederacy has expressed interest in opening diplomatic channels with Earth. We're on the brink of a new era in interstellar relations." As the implications of this news sank in, Luna's attention was drawn back to the medical bay. James was attempting to sit up, his movements slow but determined. Dr. Rodriguez gently eased him back down, her lips moving in what Luna assumed were words of caution. Blackwood turned to Zorn. "Ambassador, I believe we have some work to do. The station is about to become very busy." As Blackwood and Zorn left to prepare for the incoming diplomatic storm, Luna remained at the window. She watched as James drifted back to sleep, his face peaceful for the first time since she'd met him. Outside the medical bay, the station hummed with increased activity. Diplomats and officials from various species began to arrive, filling the corridors with a cacophony of languages and the rustle of official documents. The air was charged with a sense of anticipation, of history in the making. Yet for Luna, the universe had narrowed to the steady rise and fall of James's chest, and the promise of the conversations to come when he finally awoke. Awakened, Luna's heart swelled with relief and anticipation as she watched James's eyes focus on her through the observation window. As the days passed, James's recovery progressed at an astonishing rate. The medical bay buzzed with activity, a symphony of human and alien technologies working in harmony to heal him. Dr. Elena Rodriguez and Dr. Marcus Green marveled at the synergistic effects of the combined human and Deltan treatments. "His cellular regeneration is off the charts," Dr. Rodriguez remarked, studying a holographic display of James's vital signs. "The Deltan techniques are amplifying the effects of our own treatments." Meanwhile, The neutral space station transformed into a hub of unprecedented interspecies activity. The central plaza, once a simple gathering space, now teemed with life as it was converted into a grand exhibition hall. Dr. Hiroaki Tanaka and Chief Technician Ravi Patel led teams of human and alien engineers, their voices rising above the din as they directed the setup of interactive displays. Careful with that quantum interface, Tanaka called out to a Zillion engineer. We need to calibrate it precisely to demonstrate the principles of our FDO communication. The centerpiece of the exhibition took shape, a massive holographic recreation of James's rescue mission. Visitors from dozens of species gathered around, their eyes wide with wonder as they witnessed human ingenuity in action. As James gained strength, he began physical therapy sessions under the watchful eyes of Dr. Green and a Zillion physiotherapist named Dr. Zaxlor. The alien doctor's forearms proved invaluable in supporting James as he took his first tentative steps. Excellent progress, James, Dr. Zaxlor chittered encouragingly. Your muscular adaptation is quite remarkable for a human. During one of these sessions, the therapy room's door slid open, revealing an unexpected visitor. Counselor Vex, the Deltan representative, stood in the doorway, his silver skin shimmering under the lights. James straightened, surprise evident on his face. Counselor Vex, he managed, his voice still slightly hoarse from disuse. Vex approached, his movements graceful and deliberate. Mr. Cook, he began, his voice carrying a hint of humility that James had never heard from a Deltan before. I come to offer my personal thanks for your actions and to apologize for our government's previous dismissive attitude towards humans. The room fell silent, the weight of the moment palpable. Several alien diplomats who had been observing the therapy session exchanged meaningful glances. James nodded, accepting the apology with quiet dignity. Thank you, Counselor. I hope this marks the beginning of a new era of understanding between our peoples. As news of this encounter spread through the station, Captain Marcus Blackwood saw an opportunity. He called a meeting with key personnel, including Commander Volkov, Lieutenant Hassan, and representatives from various alien species. Ladies and gentlemen, Blackwood addressed the assembled group, his voice firm and resolute. In light of recent events, I propose the formation of a new interspecies task force. We'll call it the Galactic Cooperative Initiative, or GCI for short. The room buzzed with excitement as Blackwood outlined his vision. Our first major project will be developing an improved early warning system for solar storms and other space-based phenomena. We'll combine human innovation with Deltan and Zillion technologies to create something greater than any of U.S. could achieve alone. As the meeting concluded, Luna found herself approached by Ambassador Zorn. Luna, he clicked, his mandibles twitching with what she now recognized as excitement. Your unique perspective could be invaluable in these negotiations. Would you consider taking on a more active role in our diplomatic proceedings? Luna's eyes widened, but she nodded without hesitation. Of course, Ambassador. I'd be honored to help bridge the gap between our species. As preparations for the formal ceremony honoring James continued, the station security protocols underwent significant upgrades. Commander Volkov worked tirelessly alongside Deltan and Zillion security experts to implement a new integrated system. This new framework will set the standard for interspecies cooperation in security matters, Volkov explained to Captain Blackwood as they reviewed the plans. James's recovery reached a significant milestone when he stood and walked unassisted for the first time since his rescue. As he took his first steps, cheers erupted from the medical staff and observers alike. The moment was broadcast throughout the station, a powerful symbol of humanity's growing stature in the galactic community. As the date of the ceremony approached, Captain Blackwood received troubling intelligence reports. He called Lieutenant Zara Hassan to his office, his face grave. "We received word of a potential security threat," he informed her, his voice low. "A fringe group of alien extremists may be planning an attack during the event. We need to enhance our security measures without causing alarm. Hassan nodded, her mind already racing with potential strategies. I'll work with Commander Volkov to develop contingency plans. Sir will be ready for any eventuality. As final preparations for the ceremony got underway, James stood before a mirror in his quarters, adjusting the collar of his new formal uniform. The garment beautifully incorporated elements of both human and alien design, a testament to the new era of cooperation. Outside his window, he could see ships arriving from all corners of the galaxy, each bearing representatives eager to witness this historic event. As he watched, a sleek Zillion vessel gracefully docked, its iridescent hull gleaming in the starlight. James took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment settle on his shoulders. He knew that what happened next would shape the future of human-alien relations for generations to come. With a final adjustment to his uniform, he turned and headed for the door, ready to step into a new chapter of galactic history. With a final deep breath, James stepped out into the corridor, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As James made his way through the station, he couldn't help but notice the increased security presence. Commander Alexei Volkov's team had been working tirelessly to implement a new, integrated security system that combined human, Deltan, and Zillion technologies. Holographic scanners flickered at intersections, while sleek drones patrolled the air ducts. "Impressive setup, Commander," James remarked as he passed Volkov in the main concourse. Volkov nodded, his expression stern. "We're leaving nothing to chance, Mr. Cook. The station's safety is our top priority." James continued his journey, each step a testament to his remarkable recovery. He had insisted on walking to the ceremony under his own power, despite the concerns of his medical team. As he rounded a corner, he nearly collided with Dr. Marcus Green and Dr. Zaxlor. "James!" Dr. Green exclaimed, his eyes widening. "You should be conserving your strength for the ceremony." The Zillion physiotherapist, Dr. Zaxlor, chittered in agreement. "While your progress is commendable, we must not risk overexertion." James smiled, touched by their concern. "I appreciate your worry, but I need to do this. It's more than just a ceremony. It's a symbol of human resilience and interspecies cooperation." As they spoke, a commotion near the docking bay caught their attention. A sleek Deltan science vessel had just arrived, and from it emerged a familiar face. Dr. Lara Voss, the scientist whose data had been crucial in averting the asteroid crisis. James watched as Captain Marcus Blackwood greeted Dr. Voss, their conversation animated. He couldn't hear their words, but the excitement in their body language was palpable. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the station. Red warning lights flashed, bathing the corridors in an eerie glow. James's hand instinctively went to his side, where his uniform concealed a small emergency communicator. "Attention all personnel." Commander Volkov's voice rang out over the intercom. "We are experiencing a station-wide power fluctuation. Please remain calm and stay in your current locations until further notice." James exchanged a look with Dr. Green and Dr. Zaxlor. "I should head to the command center," he said, already moving towards the nearest turbolift. As the door slid open, he found himself face to face with Luna. Her silver skin seemed to shimmer under the pulsing red lights. "James," she said, relief evident in her voice. "I was just coming to find you. Captain Blackwood has called an emergency meeting." Together, they made their way to the command center. The room was a flurry of activity, with human and alien personnel working side by side to identify the source of the power surge. Captain Blackwood stood at the center of the storm, his voice steady as he issued orders. "Dr. Tanaka, I want a full diagnostic of our power systems. Lieutenant Hassan, coordinate with our Zillion allies to boost our sensor capabilities." As James and Luna entered, Blackwood turned to them. "James, Luna, good. We've got a situation." He gestured to a holographic display showing the station's lower levels. A pulsing red that marked a previously unknown section. The power surge originated from here, Blackwood explained. Initial scans indicate the presence of an alien artifact of unknown origin. It seems to have been activated by the increased energy output from our enhanced systems. Dr. Alara Voss stepped forward, her eyes gleaming with curiosity. Captain, if I may, I'd like to join the investigation team. My expertise in xenotechnology could be valuable. Blackwood nodded. Agreed. James, I want you on this team as well. Your experience with alien tech during your rescue mission could prove crucial. James straightened, ignoring the twinge in his still healing muscles. Of course, Captain. When do we start? Immediately, Blackwood replied. Chief Technician Ravi Patel and Dr. Junkar, our Zillion xenoarchaeologists, will join you. But be cautious. We received intelligence that a group calling themselves the Purity Collective may have infiltrated the station. They're opposed to increased human influence in galactic affairs. As if on cue, Lieutenant Zara Hassan approached, her face grim. Captain, we've detected unauthorized access attempts in the lower levels. It could be the Purity Collective. Blackwood's teeth gritted. Commander Volkov, mobilize your security forces. Seal off all access points to the lower levels. We need to protect our investigation team and neutralize any threats. As the command center erupted into a flurry of activity, James felt a hand on his arm. He turned to see Luna, her eyes filled with concern. Be careful, James, she said softly. We've come too far to lose you now. James nodded, squeezing her hand reassuringly. I will, and when I get back, we'll have that ceremony, extremists and mysterious artifacts be damned. With a final nod to Captain Blackwood, James joined Dr. Voss, Ravi Patel, and Dr. Junkar at the turbolift. As the doors closed, he couldn't help but feel a mix of anticipation and trepidation. Whatever secrets the artifact held, whatever dangers the Purity Collective posed, he knew that the next few hours would be crucial not just for the station, but for the future of human-alien relations. The turbolift descended rapidly, carrying them into the unknown depths of the station. James's mind raced with possibilities. What would they find? And more importantly, could they uncover its secrets before the Purity Collective reached them? As the doors opened to the dimly lit lower levels, James and his team stepped out, their footsteps echoing in the eerie silence. The artifact awaited, its mysteries poised to reshape their understanding of the galaxy if they could unlock them in time. Time, as James and his team ventured deeper into the station's lower levels. The eerie silence was suddenly shattered by the blaring of alarms. Red emergency lights bathed the corridors in an ominous glow. What's happening? Dr. Alara Voss asked, her voice tight with concern. Before James could respond, his communicator crackled to life. Captain Blackwood's voice came through, urgent and clipped. James, we've got a situation. The Purity Collective has launched a coordinated attack on multiple levels of the station. Proceed with caution. James exchanged grim looks with his team. Understood, Captain. We're continuing our investigation of the artifact. As they rounded a corner, they came face to face with the object of their search. The alien artifact stood in the center of a vast chamber, pulsing with an otherworldly energy. Its surface was covered in intricate, swirling patterns that seemed to shift and change as they watched. Fascinating, Dr. Junkar chittered, his mandibles twitching with excitement. I've never seen anything like it. Chief Technician Ravi Patel was already setting up scanning equipment. Let's see what secrets this beauty is hiding. As they worked, the sounds of battle echoed through the station. Commander Volkov's security forces engaged the Purity Collective in fierce firefights, the chaos spreading through multiple decks. Despite the growing crisis, James and his team remained focused on their task. Hours passed in a blur of analysis and discovery. Suddenly, Dr. Voss let out a gasp. "James, look at this," she said, her eyes wide with wonder. She projected a holographic display from her datapad, showing a series of intricate star maps. "These are coordinates for potentially habitable worlds. Worlds we never knew existed." James leaned in, his heart racing. This could change everything. The possibilities for exploration, for expansion. His thoughts were interrupted by another transmission from Captain Blackwood. "James, we need that data. Lieutenant Hassan is en route to your location to oversee the transfer to our secure backup systems." As if on cue, Lieutenant Zara Hassan burst into the chamber, her uniform singed and a determined set to her jaw. "Okay, people, let's move fast. We don't know how long we can hold off the Purity Collective." While Hassan coordinated the data transfer, James's mind was racing. The station's regular communications were being jammed by the artifact's electromagnetic interference, leaving them isolated from potential help. "Captain," James called over the comm, "I have an idea. We can use the station's communication array to broadcast a wide-spectrum distress signal. If we integrate human, Deltan, and Zillion tech, we might be able to punch through the interference." "Do it," Blackwood replied without hesitation. "I'm sending Dr. Tanaka and his team to assist you." James turned to Ravi. "Chief, I need you to help Dr. Tanaka reconfigure the array. Dr. Voss, Dr. Junkar, let's continue analyzing this data. There might be more we're missing." As Ravi left to join Tanaka's team, James and the others dove back into their analysis. The artifact seemed to respond to their efforts, its pulsing glow intensifying. "James," Dr. Junkar called, his voice filled with awe. "I think I've found something. This section here. It appears to contain information about an advanced propulsion technology. If we can decipher this—" Before he could finish, the chamber shook violently. The sounds of battle were getting closer. "The Purity Collective is making a push for the lower levels," Hassan reported, her hand on her weapon. "We need to move." James made a split-second decision. "We're taking the artifact with us. Dr. Voss, Dr. Junkar, help me disconnect it. Lieutenant Hassan, cover us." As they worked to carefully detach the artifact from its base, James's communicator crackled again. This time, it was Luna's voice that came through. "James, I've managed to evacuate most of the civilian delegates to secure areas. But the Purity Collective is targeting the Central Plaza. We need help." "Hang on, Luna," James replied, his voice strained as he helped lift the artifact. "We're on our way." Just as they secured the artifact for transport, a group of armed extremists burst into the chamber. Hassan reacted instantly, her weapon firing a burst of energy that sent the attackers scrambling for cover. "Go!" she shouted, laying down suppressing fire. "I'll hold them off." James and the others ran, the precious artifact cradled between them. As they raced through the corridors, dodging debris and fleeing personnel, James could only hope that their discoveries would be worth the chaos engulfing the station. They rounded a corner and nearly collided with a group of Zillion warriors, their chitinous armor gleaming under the emergency lights. "Ambassador Corps sent us," one of them explained quickly. "We're here to assist." With the Zillion reinforcements providing protection, James and his team made their way to a more secure area of the station. As they set up a temporary research post, the artifact's glow seemed to pulse in sync with the distant sounds of battle. James looked at the alien device, then at his team of humans and aliens working together in the face of crisis. Whatever secrets the artifact held, whatever challenges lay ahead, he knew that their unity would be the key to facing them. As Dr. Voss and Dr. Junkar resumed their analysis of the propulsion technology data, James turned his attention to the station's overall situation. The distress signal was broadcasting, but would help arrive in time? And what would they do if the Purity Collective breached their defenses? With these questions weighing heavily on his mind, James prepared to make his next move in a battle that would determine not just the fate of the station, but potentially the future of galactic exploration itself. As the sounds of battle faded, James and his team emerged from their makeshift shelter, the artifact pulsing softly in their midst. The station's corridors, once pristine, now bore the scars of conflict. Emergency crews rushed past, their faces grim but determined. Captain Blackwood's voice crackled over the comm system. "Attention all personnel. The immediate threat has been neutralized. We are now entering recovery phase. Report to your designated areas for damage assessment and repair duties." James exchanged glances with Dr. Voss and Dr. Jinkar. "Let's get this artifact to a secure location," he said, wincing slightly as he adjusted his grip on the alien device. As they made their way through the station, the full extent of the damage became apparent. Twisted metal and shattered panels littered the floors, while the acrid smell of burnt circuitry hung in the air. Yet amidst the chaos, James noticed something remarkable. Humans and aliens working side by side, clearing debris and tending to the injured without hesitation. They arrived at a reinforced laboratory that had been hastily repurposed as a secure research facility. Chief Technician Ravi Patel was already there, setting up an array of scanning equipment. "We're ready to begin analysis," Ravi said, his eyes bright with excitement despite the fatigue etched on his face. As James and his team carefully placed the artifact on an examination table, Luna entered the lab. Her silver skin was smudged with soot, but her eyes shone with relief as she saw James. "The civilian delegates are safe," she reported, "but we have a lot of work ahead of us." James nodded, squeezing her hand briefly before turning his attention back to the artifact. "Let's see what secrets this thing is hiding," he said. Over the next few hours, the lab buzzed with activity. Dr. Voss and Dr. Junkar pored over the star maps, cross-referencing them with known galactic charts. Ravi and his team worked on decoding the propulsion technology data, their excitement growing with each breakthrough. James moved between the groups, coordinating their efforts and relaying information to Captain Blackwood. As the day wore on, the pieces began to fall into place. "James, look at this," Dr. Voss called, gesturing to a holographic display. "These coordinates. They point to dozens of potentially habitable worlds we never knew existed." Before James could respond, Ravi's voice rang out from across the lab. "We've done it. We've decoded the basic principles of the propulsion system. It's revolutionary." James felt a surge of excitement. "Captain," he said into his communicator, "we've made significant progress. I think it's time to brief the delegates." "Agreed," Blackwood replied. "I'm calling an emergency assembly in the Central Plaza. Be there in 30 minutes. As James and his team made their way to the plaza, they saw the station transforming around them. Repair crews worked tirelessly, patching hull breaches and restoring power systems. The Central Plaza itself had been converted into a bustling command center, with holographic displays showing repair progress and security status. Captain Blackwood stood at the center, coordinating efforts with a calm efficiency that belied the chaos of the past few hours. As James approached, he saw Ambassador Quor of the Zillion Confederacy deep in conversation with the captain. "Ah, James," Blackwood said, turning to greet him. "Ambassador Quor and I were just discussing the implications of your discoveries. Are you ready to present your findings?" James nodded, feeling the weight of the moment. As he stepped up to the makeshift podium, he saw faces both human and alien turn towards him, their expressions a mix of curiosity and apprehension. "Representatives of Earth and our honored galactic allies," James began, his voice steady. "The artifact we discovered has provided us with information that could change the course of our shared future." As James outlined their findings, the star maps of unknown habitable worlds and the revolutionary propulsion technology, he saw the impact of his words ripple through the audience. Excited murmurs grew into a low roar of conversation. Ambassador Core stepped forward, his mandibles clicking thoughtfully. This discovery could usher in a new era of exploration and cooperation between our peoples, he said. The Zillion Confederacy is prepared to offer our full support in pursuing this research. Captain Blackwood nodded, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. Then let us move forward together, he said. We'll establish joint research teams to further study the artifact's data and begin practical applications of the propulsion technology. As the assembly dispersed, buzzing with excitement and plans for the future, James felt a hand on his arm. He turned to see Luna, her eyes shining with pride. "You did it, James," she said softly. "You've opened up a whole new universe for us." James smiled, but before he could respond, his communicator beeped urgently. Dr. Tanaka's voice came through, tight with excitement. "James, Captain Blackwood, you need to come to engineering immediately," he said. "We've just successfully activated a small-scale prototype of the new propulsion system. You're going to want to see this." As James and Captain Blackwood hurried towards engineering, the station hummed with a new energy. The attack by the Purity Collective, while devastating, had inadvertently sparked a renaissance of interspecies cooperation. With the promise of new worlds to explore and revolutionary technology to develop, the future suddenly seemed brighter than ever. Yet as they approached engineering, James couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. What other secrets did the artifact hold? And how would these discoveries reshape humanity's place in the vast, still largely unknown galaxy? James and Captain Blackwood rushed into engineering, their footsteps echoing in the corridor. As the doors slid open, they were greeted by a scene of controlled chaos. Dr. Tanaka stood at the center of a whirlwind of activity, his face lit by the glow of holographic displays. "Ah, you're here," Dr. Tanaka exclaimed, waving them over. "We've just completed the first successful test of the small-scale prototype. The results are, well, see for yourself." He gestured to a nearby display, where a simulated spacecraft zipped across the screen at an impossible speed, leaving a trail of distorted space-time in its wake. Captain Blackwood's eyes widened. "Is this data accurate?" "Absolutely," Dr. Tanaka confirmed. "We're looking at speeds that could revolutionize interstellar travel. But we need a larger testing ground to fully explore its capabilities." James nodded, his mind racing with possibilities. "Captain, we should clear the main hangar bay. It's the only space large enough for a proper demonstration." Blackwood considered for a moment, then nodded. "Agreed. I'll make the arrangements immediately. Dr. Tanaka, how soon can you be ready for a full-scale test?" "With round-the-clock work, we could be ready in 48 hours, Tanaka replied. "Make it happen," Blackwood ordered. "I want all available resources dedicated to this project." As word of the impending demonstration spread, the station buzzed with renewed energy. James found himself at the center of a whirlwind of activity, coordinating with various teams to ensure everything was ready. In the repurposed hangar bay, Dr. Tanaka led a diverse team of human and alien engineers in constructing a controlled testing environment. Powerful energy dampeners were installed along the walls, their low hum a constant reminder of the potential danger involved. James worked closely with Dr. Voss and Dr. Junkar, fine-tuning the prototype based on the data from their earlier tests. The collaborative effort between human and alien scientists was a sight to behold, each bringing unique perspectives and knowledge to the table. "James," Dr. Voss called out, her voice tinged with excitement. "Look at these energy readings. If we adjust the field harmonics here and here, we might be able to increase efficiency by another 15%. Dr. Junkar chittered in agreement, his compound eyes gleaming. "Yes, and if we reconfigure the containment field to account for the increased output, we can maintain stability even at higher speeds." As they worked, Luna entered the hangar, her silver skin reflecting the harsh lighting. "James, we have a situation," she said, her voice low. "Some of the alien delegations are expressing concerns about the implications of this technology. They're worried about how it might shift the balance of power in the galaxy." James frowned, setting down his datapad. "We need to address this head-on. Can you arrange a series of informational sessions? Bring together scientists from different species to discuss the potential applications and safeguards we're putting in place." Luna nodded, already tapping notes into her comm device. "I'll get right on it." "Oh, and Ambassador Corps is requesting a meeting with Captain Blackwood. Something about a partnership proposal." As Luna left to organize the sessions, James turned his attention back to the prototype. The next few hours were a blur of calculations, adjustments, and simulations. Each test brought them closer to their goal, the prototype's performance improving incrementally with each iteration. Finally, after nearly 2 days of nonstop work, Dr. Tanaka declared the prototype ready for a full demonstration. The hangar bay, now transformed into a high-tech testing facility, was a hive of activity as final preparations were made. James stood at the control console, his heart racing with anticipation. Captain Blackwood entered the observation room, followed by a group of dignitaries from various species. "Are we ready, Mr. Cook?" Blackwood asked, his voice carrying a hint of excitement beneath his professional demeanor. James nodded, his hand hovering over the activation switch. "All systems are go, Captain. We're ready to make history." As James prepared to initiate the test, a warning klaxon suddenly blared through the station. Commander Volkov's voice came over the comm system, tense and urgent. "Security breach detected in the main computer core. All personnel on high alert. Commander Cook, Captain Blackwood, please report to the security center immediately." James and Blackwood exchanged a look of concern. The demonstration would have to wait. As they rushed out of the hangar, James couldn't shake the feeling that the stakes had just been raised significantly. Whatever was happening, he knew that the next few hours would be crucial not just for the station, but potentially for the future of human-alien relations throughout the galaxy. James and Captain Blackwood raced through the corridors, their footsteps echoing off the metal walls. As they approached the security center, they saw Commander Volkov standing at attention, his face grim. "Report, Commander," Blackwood ordered as they entered. "We've detected an unauthorized access attempt in the main computer core," Volkov explained, gesturing to a holographic display. "The intruder is using advanced encryption techniques to mask their activities." James leaned in, studying the scrolling data. "Any idea what they're after?" "Not yet," Volkov replied. "But given recent events, we can't rule out the possibility that it's related to the propulsion technology data." Captain Blackwood's eyes hardened. "Lock down all sensitive data and initiate a station-wide security sweep." "James, I need you to." An alert chimed, cutting off the captain's words. The security center's main screen flickered to life, showing a message from Dr. Tanaka. "Captain James." Tanaka's voice crackled through the speakers. "We've completed final preparations for the demonstration. The hangar bay is ready." Blackwood and James exchanged glances. The security breach was a serious concern, but they couldn't ignore the significance of the propulsion technology demonstration. "We can't delay the demonstration," James said. "Not with all the dignitaries already assembled. It could jeopardize our entire project." Blackwood nodded reluctantly. "Agreed. Commander Volkov, continue investigating the security breach. James and I will proceed with the demonstration." As they made their way to the hangar bay, James felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. The prototype's potential was enormous, but so were the risks involved. The hangar door slid open, revealing a sea of faces, human and alien alike. The air buzzed with anticipation. James spotted Dr. Voss and Dr. Junkar at the control console, making last-minute adjustments. Luna approached, her silver skin gleaming under the harsh hangar lights. "The delegates are getting restless," she said quietly. "They're eager to see what we've accomplished." James nodded, taking his place at the console. He took a deep breath, steadying his nerves. "Let's give them a show they'll never forget." Captain Blackwood stepped forward, addressing the assembled crowd. "Distinguished guests, thank you for your patience. We are about to witness a monumental leap forward in propulsion technology." As Blackwood spoke, James initiated the startup sequence. The prototype hummed to life, a soft blue glow emanating from its core. The assembled delegates leaned forward, their eyes fixed on the device. James watched the energy readings climb steadily. Everything was proceeding as planned. Then, without warning, alarms blared throughout the hangar. "Energy spike detected," Dr. Voss shouted, her fingers flying over the controls. "The containment field is fluctuating." James's heart raced as he saw the readings skyrocket. The prototype's glow intensified, and a shimmering bubble of distorted space-time began to form around it. "Evacuate the hangar immediately," Captain Blackwood ordered, his voice cutting through the chaos. As panicked delegates rushed for the exits, James made a split-second decision. "I can stabilize it," he said, locking eyes with Luna. "But I need your help." Luna nodded without hesitation, moving to his side. "What do you need me to do?" Before James could respond, a familiar voice cut through the commotion. "I will assist as well," Ambassador Core declared, stepping forward. James quickly outlined his plan, assigning tasks to Luna and Core. As they worked frantically to contain the expanding field, James's mind raced. The prototype's behavior was unexpected, but it hinted at possibilities far beyond their initial projections. The situation reached a critical point as the power core began to overload. James knew he had only one option left, a dangerous manual adjustment of the containment matrix. "Luna, Core, I need you to modulate the field harmonics," James instructed. "I'm going to realign the core." Time seemed to slow as James reached into the heart of the prototype. The energy coursing through the device made his hair stand on end. With steady hands, he made the necessary adjustments, acutely aware that one wrong move could spell disaster. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, gradually, the energy levels began to stabilize. The shimmering bubble contracted, and the alarms fell silent. James stepped back, his heart pounding. They had done it. They had averted catastrophe and, in the process, pushed the boundaries of the technology even further than they had imagined. As the immediate danger passed, Captain Blackwood approached, his expression a mix of relief and concern. "Well done, all of you," he said. "But this incident raises serious questions about the safety and implications of this technology." James nodded, his mind already racing with new possibilities. "Captain, what we've witnessed here today goes beyond anything we initially projected. This could revolutionize space travel in ways we've only dreamed of." Blackwood considered James's words carefully. "Assemble the key personnel and delegation representatives in the main conference room," he ordered. "We need to discuss our next steps immediately." As they left the hangar, James couldn't shake the feeling that they stood on the precipice of something monumental. The demonstration had been a near disaster, but it had also opened doors to incredible new possibilities. Whatever came next, James knew that the future of human-alien relations, and perhaps the future of the cosmos itself, hung in the balance. Balance. Hung in the balance. The main conference room buzzed with tension as Captain Blackwood called the meeting to order. James, still feeling the residual energy from the prototype coursing through his body, took his seat next to Luna and Ambassador Core. "Ladies and gentlemen," Blackwood began, his voice cutting through the murmur of conversation. "What we witnessed today was both a triumph and a near disaster. We need to address the implications immediately." As the discussion unfolded, James found his mind racing with possibilities. The demonstration had revealed potential far beyond their initial projections. He leaned forward, eager to share his insights. "Captain," James interjected, "the energy readings we observe suggest we've only scratched the surface of this technology's capabilities. With further refinement, we could revolutionize interstellar travel." Dr. Tanaka nodded in agreement. The spatial distortions we witnessed, if properly controlled, could allow for faster-than-light travel on an unprecedented scale. The room erupted into a flurry of excited chatter. Ambassador Quares's multifaceted eyes glimmered with interest. This technology could reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. We must proceed with caution. Captain Blackwood raised a hand for silence. "Agreed. Our first priority must be ensuring the safety and security of this research." He turned to Commander Volkov. "I want increased security measures implemented immediately. Restrict access to the prototype and all related data." Volkov nodded sharply. "Consider it done, Captain." As the meeting continued, James found himself drawn into intense discussions with Dr. Voss and Dr. Junkar. They huddled over datapads, sketching out ideas for stabilizing the energy output and minimizing the risk of uncontrolled spatial distortions. Luna moved gracefully through the room, facilitating communication between the various species present. Her silver skin gleamed under the harsh conference room lights as she translated complex scientific concepts with ease. As the hours wore on, the excitement in the room grew palpable. The potential of the new technology seemed limitless, opening up possibilities that had once existed only in the realm of science fiction. Captain Blackwood called for a brief recess, and James took the opportunity to stretch his legs. He found himself standing next to Luna, gazing out at the stars through the conference room's viewport. "It's incredible, isn't it?" Luna said softly. "The universe suddenly feels so much more accessible." James nodded, his eyes fixed on the distant pinpoints of light. "We're on the brink of something monumental, Luna. I can feel it." Their moment of quiet contemplation was interrupted by the arrival of a group of Zillion scientists, led by Ambassador Quor. The ambassador's mandibles clicked excitedly as he approached. "James Cook," Quor chittered, "my people are most impressed with your work. We wish to offer our full support in further developing this technology." James felt a surge of excitement. The Zillions were known for their advanced computational systems and energy containment technologies. Their expertise could prove invaluable. As the conference reconvened, Captain Blackwood took center stage once more. "After careful consideration, I propose the formation of an interstellar propulsion research consortium. This organization will bring together the brightest minds from Earth and our alien allies to further develop and safeguard this technology." The proposal was met with enthusiastic approval. As the details were hammered out, James found himself assigned to lead a team of human and alien scientists in refining the propulsion system. As the meeting drew to a close, Dr. Tanaka approached James with an intriguing discovery. "I've been analyzing the data from the demonstration," he said, his voice low with excitement. "There are traces of exotic particles that match theoretical models of the regions indicated by the artifact star maps." James's eyes widened. "Are you saying there might be a connection between the propulsion technology and those coordinates?" Tanaka nodded. "It's a possibility we can't ignore." The implications of this revelation sent James's mind spinning. If there was indeed a link between the ancient artifact and their new propulsion system, it could open up entirely new avenues of research and exploration. As the conference room emptied, James found himself standing with Captain Blackwood, Luna, and Ambassador Quor. The captain's expression was serious as he addressed them. "What we've set in motion here today will have far-reaching consequences," Blackwood said. "We're entering uncharted territory, both scientifically and diplomatically. I'm counting on each of you to help navigate the challenges ahead." James nodded. Feeling the weight of responsibility, settling on his shoulders. As he left the conference room, his mind was already racing with ideas for the next phase of their research. The prototype awaited, its potential barely tapped, promising a future filled with discoveries beyond imagination. Imagination, the prototype awaited, its potential barely tapped, promising a future filled with discoveries beyond their wildest dreams. As the days passed, the excitement from the initial demonstration gave way to intense focus and willpower. James and his team worked tirelessly to refine the propulsion system, incorporating the insights gained from the near disaster. The Interstellar Propulsion Research Consortium buzzed with activity as human and alien scientists collaborated on various aspects of the project. With the date for the second demonstration fast approaching, James found himself in the heart of the prototype chamber, making final adjustments. Dr. Voss stood nearby, her eyes fixed on a holographic display of the system's energy matrix. "James, these readings are incredible," she said, her voice filled with awe. "The spatial distortion field is more stable than we ever thought possible." James nodded, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "The zillion computational algorithms have made a world of difference. We might be ready ahead of schedule at this rate." Just then, the station's alert system blared to life. Red warning lights flashed throughout the chamber as Captain Blackwood's voice echoed over the intercom. "Attention all personnel. We are detecting a massive solar flare from the nearby star. All non-essential systems are to be powered down immediately. Prepare for emergency power redistribution." James and Dr. Voss exchanged alarmed glances. The timing couldn't have been worse. "We need to secure the prototype," James said, already moving towards the main control panel. "If we lose power during the calibration sequence..." His words were cut short as the lights in the chamber flickered ominously. The prototype's energy readings fluctuated wildly on the display. "James," Luna's voice came through his comm device. "Captain Blackwood needs you in the command center immediately." Without hesitation, James sprinted out of the chamber, leaving Dr. Voss to manage the prototype's shutdown sequence. As he raced through the corridors, he could feel the tension in the air. Crew members and alien delegates alike moved with purpose, their faces etched with concern. James burst into the command center to find Captain Blackwood and Admiral Reeves huddled around a tactical display. The image showed the station surrounded by a sea of angry red, representing the incoming solar radiation. "Cook," Blackwood said, his voice tense. "We're in a tight spot. The station's shields are barely holding, and we've had to divert power from all non-essential systems." James's mind raced, analyzing the situation. His eyes darted between the tactical display and the readings from the prototype chamber. Suddenly, an idea struck him. "Captain," he said, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins, "I think I have a solution. We can use the prototype to generate a spatial distortion field around the station." Admiral Reeves raised an eyebrow. "You want to use an untested propulsion system as a shield?" James nodded, his excitement growing as he explained the concept. "The prototype can create controlled spatial distortions. If we modify it to project on a larger scale, we could create a barrier that would deflect the solar radiation." Captain Blackwood's eyes narrowed as he considered the proposal. After a moment of tense silence, he turned to Ambassador Kaur, who had been listening intently. "Ambassador, what's your take on this?" Kaur's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. "The concept is sound. Zillion scientists have theorized similar applications, though we've never attempted it on this scale." Blackwood nodded, his decision made. "Do it, Cook. But be aware, if this goes wrong, we're putting the entire station at risk." James acknowledged the gravity of the situation with a curt nod. "Understood, Captain. We'll need to work fast." Within minutes, James had assembled a team in the prototype chamber. Dr. Voss and Dr. Junkar worked feverishly to reconfigure the device's output parameters, while James coordinated with Luna to integrate the prototype's controls with the station's main systems. As they worked, James could feel the station shuddering under the assault of the solar storm. Warning klaxons blared intermittently, a constant reminder of the danger they faced. Energy matrix recalibrated, Dr. Voss called out, her fingers flying over the control panel. Ready to initialize on your mark, James. James took a deep breath, his hand hovering over the activation switch. Here goes nothing, he muttered, and pressed a button. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then, with a low hum that quickly rose to a penetrating whine, the prototype surged to life. A shimmering field of distorted space-time began to spread from the device, rapidly expanding to encompass the entire station. In the command center, Captain Blackwood watched in amazement as the sea of red on the tactical display was pushed back by a growing sphere of blue. "It's working," he breathed, scarcely able to believe his eyes. Back in the prototype chamber, James and his team worked tirelessly to maintain the integrity of the spatial distortion field. As the minutes ticked by, the strain on the device became evident. The energy core pulsed erratically, and warning lights flashed across the control panels. "We're pushing it to the limit," Dr. Jinkar warned, his normally calm voice tinged with concern. "The core temperature is approaching critical levels." James nodded, his forehead beaded with sweat as he made rapid adjustments to the field harmonics. "Just a little longer," he urged. "The storm's almost past." As if in response to his words, the prototype gave a violent shudder. Arcs of energy crackled across its surface, and the spatial distortion field flickered ominously. "James!" Luna's voice came through the calm, urgent and strained. "The field is collapsing. You need to shut it down now." With no time to spare, James initiated the emergency shutdown sequence. The prototype's whine rose to a fever pitch, then abruptly cut off. The shimmering field vanished, leaving the station once again exposed to the elements. For a moment, silence reigned in the chamber. Then, Captain Blackwood's voice came through the comm, filled with relief and a hint of awe. "Cook, do you read? The storm's past. Whatever you did, it worked. Report to the conference room immediately." As James made his way out of the chamber, exhausted but elated, he couldn't help but feel that they had just taken another momentous step into the unknown. The prototype had performed beyond their wildest expectations, opening up a whole new realm of possibilities. The conference room was already buzzing with excitement when James arrived. Captain Blackwood stood at the head of the table, his face a mix of relief and drive. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began as James took his seat, "what we've witnessed today goes far beyond a simple demonstration of propulsion technology. We've stumbled upon something that could revolutionize not just space travel, but our very understanding of energy manipulation and defensive systems." Admiral Reeves leaned forward, his eyes gleaming with interest. "I propose we form a dedicated task force to explore these new applications. We'll call it Project Aegis." As the discussion unfolded, James found his mind racing with new ideas and possibilities. The impromptu shield had been just the beginning. With further refinement, who knew what they might achieve? Ambassador Quares's multifaceted eyes fixed on James. "The Zillion Confederacy is most impressed with your ingenuity, James Cook. We would be honored to contribute our expertise to this Project Aegis." James nodded, grateful for the support. As the meeting continued, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing on the brink of something truly monumental. The prototype had proven itself beyond their wildest dreams, and the future stretched out before them, filled with endless possibilities. As the conference room emptied, James found himself standing with Luna, gazing out at the stars once more. The recent ordeal had left its mark on the station, but it had also united them in a way he never thought possible. "What do you think comes next?" Luna asked, her silver skin reflecting the starlight. James smiled, his eyes fixed on the distant horizons of space. I'm not sure, he admitted, but whatever it is, I have a feeling it's going to be incredible. Extraordinary. I can't wait to see where this technology takes us. James nodded, his eyes gleaming with anticipation. The possibilities are endless. But first, we need to refine our prototype and explore its full potential. As if on cue, the station's intercom crackled to life. Attention all personnel. This is Captain Blackwood. We are experiencing an unprecedented influx of visitors. All department heads, please report to conference room A immediately. James and Luna exchanged glances before hurrying to the meeting. The corridors were bustling with activity, filled with a diverse array of alien species James had never seen before. As they entered the conference room, they found it already packed with station leadership and visiting dignitaries. Captain Blackwood stood at the head of the table, his face a mask of controlled tension. Ladies and gentlemen, the success of our recent demonstration has attracted more attention than we anticipated. We're implementing new scheduling and access protocols to manage the influx of visitors. Admiral Reeves leaned forward, his voice carrying across the room. In light of recent events, we're forming a new task force. Project Aegis will focus on developing advanced prototypes, combining propulsion and defensive capabilities. James felt a surge of excitement at the announcement. He caught Dr. Tanaka's eye across the room, noting the scientist's scarcely controlled enthusiasm. As the meeting progressed, James found himself drawn into a discussion with a new arrival, Dr. Krellnox, a Zeraxian physicist renowned for his work on quantum field manipulation. The alien's multifaceted eyes glittered with intelligence as they debated the finer points of spatial distortion theory. Days blurred into weeks as Project Aegis took shape. The station hummed with activity, its laboratories and workshops operating around the clock. James and his team worked tirelessly, pushing the boundaries of what was possible with the new technology. One evening, as James pored over the latest test results, an alert chimed on his console. James, Luna's voice came through, tinged with excitement. You need to see this. The long-range sensors have picked up something unusual. Intrigued, James made his way to the sensor lab. Luna stood before a large holographic display, her silver skin reflecting the eerie glow of the anomaly it depicted. It's at the edge of the solar system, she explained, manipulating the image. The energy signature matches the coordinates from the artifact. James studied the swirling vortex of energy, his mind racing with possibilities. We need to investigate this further. I'll speak with Captain Blackwood about launching a probe. The probe, however, proved less than successful. As it approached the anomaly, contact was lost, leaving them with more questions than answers. In the aftermath of the failed probe mission, James found himself in Captain Blackwood's office, presenting a bold proposal. Sir, I believe we should conduct a manned exploration of the anomaly using our new prototype. Blackwood's eyes narrowed. That's a significant risk, Cook. Are you certain it's necessary? The potential benefits outweigh the risks, James argued. This could be the key to understanding the artifact and advancing our position in the galactic community. The captain considered for a long moment before nodding. Very well. I'll approve a modified version of your plan. Assemble a small expedition team and prepare a shuttle with the new technology. The next few days were a whirlwind of activity. Dr. Tanaka led the engineering team in integrating the prototype into a shuttle, while James coordinated with Luna on mission parameters. The station buzzed with anticipation and debate over the upcoming expedition. As the launch date approached, James found himself navigating not just technical challenges, but political ones as well. Several alien factions demanded representation on the mission, leading to tense negotiations. In the end, it was decided that Zaxlor, the Zillion xenoarchaeologist, would join the human-led team. His expertise in ancient civilizations made him an invaluable addition to the expedition. The night before the launch, James stood in the observation deck, gazing out at the stars. The weight of responsibility settled heavily on his shoulders as he contemplated the journey ahead. A voice from behind interrupted his thoughts. "Quite a view, isn't it?" Captain Blackwood said, joining him at the window. James nodded, turning to face his superior. "Captain, I wanted to thank you for your support. I know this mission carries significant risks." Blackwood's expression was grave. "It does indeed, and it seems those risks have not gone unnoticed." He handed James a datapad. "This just came in from Earth. The United Earth Council is ordering us to delay the launch pending a full review." James felt his heart sink as he read the message. "But, sir, if we delay now, we risk losing this opportunity. Other species could claim the anomaly for themselves." The captain was silent for a long moment, weighing his options. Finally, he spoke. "You're right, Cook. The potential discoveries outweigh the political risks. We'll proceed as planned." As dawn broke on launch day, James found himself in the show's command seat, running through final checks. Luna sat at the communications station, while Zaxlor manned the sensor array. The docking bay was a hive of activity as final preparations were made. James could feel the mix of excitement and apprehension in the air as he initiated the launch sequence. With a low rumble, the shuttle's engines came to life, powered by the revolutionary spatial distortion technology. As they cleared the station, James engaged the new propulsion system. A shimmering field enveloped the shuttle, and they accelerated to speeds beyond anything he had experienced before. As they neared the coordinates of the anomaly, the team fell into a tense silence. The swirling vortex of energy came into view, filling their forward screens with its otherworldly glow. "Beginning scans," Zaxlor announced, his manipulators dancing over the control panel. "I'm detecting complex patterns of radiation and gravitational distortions." Suddenly, the shuttle shuddered violently. Warning lights flashed across the console as the spatial distortion field fluctuated. "We're losing stability," Luna called out, her voice tight with concern. James's hands flew over the controls, attempting to compensate. "Rerouting power to the field generator," he announced, fighting to keep his voice steady. The shuttle groaned under the strain as they were drawn inexorably toward the center of the vortex. In a desperate move, James initiated the emergency protocol, channeling all available power to the spatial distortion generator. For a heart-stopping moment, all systems went dark. The shuttle was plunged into eerie silence as they crossed the threshold of the anomaly. Then, with a blinding flash of light, they emerged on the other side. As James's vision cleared, he found himself staring at a sight that took his breath away. Before them stretched the ruins of an ancient space station, its massive structure dwarfing their shuttle. The team exchanged looks of awe and disbelief as they realized the magnitude of their discovery. As James maneuvered the shuttle closer to the ruins, his mind raced with questions. What secrets did this ancient station hold? And more importantly, how would this discovery reshape their understanding of the galaxy? With a mix of trepidation and excitement, James began the approach sequence, preparing to dock with the mysterious structure that awaited them. As James initiated the docking sequence, the shuttle shuddered violently, warning lights flashing across the console. "We've got multiple system failures," Luna called out, her fingers flying over the controls. "The anomaly must have damaged our propulsion system." James gritted his teeth, fighting to keep the shuttle steady as they approached the ancient structure. Initiating emergency protocols. "Zaxlor, reroute all non-essential power to life support and maneuvering thrusters." The Zillion's manipulators danced across the panel, executing James's commands with precision. The shuttle lurched forward, inching closer to the derelict station. With a metallic groan, They finally made contact. The docking clamps engaged, securing them to the station's exterior. James let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. "Nice flying," Luna said, her silver skin shimmering in the dim emergency lighting. James nodded, already moving to assess the damage. "We're not out of the woods yet. Luna, start scanning the station for any signs of life or organic material. Zaxlor, I need you to activate the long-range sensors. Let's see what we can learn about this system." As his teammates set to work, James began diagnosing the shuttle systems. The propulsion unit had taken the brunt of the damage, leaving them with limited maneuverability. "James," Luna called, her voice tinged with excitement. "I'm detecting faint energy signatures from the station's core. It's unlike anything I've seen before." Zaxlor's multifaceted eyes glittered as he processed the sensor data. The star system appears to be stable, with multiple planetary bodies. No signs of active technology beyond the station. James frowned, considering their options. "We need to get the propulsion system back online if we want any chance of exploring further or getting home." He turned to Zaxlor. "I could use your help with the repairs. Your knowledge of Zillion tech might give us an edge." The alien nodded, moving to join James at the engineering station. Together, they began crafting a makeshift repair plan, combining human ingenuity with Zillion technical expertise. As they worked, Luna continued her scans of the station. "There are structures here that look like data storage units," she reported. "They seem to have been preserved by the vacuum of space." James looked up from his work, an idea forming. "We should send out the ROV probe, see if we can collect some samples, and maybe access those data banks." Luna nodded, already prepping the remote-operated vehicle. With Zaxlor's guidance on xenoarchaeology, they carefully maneuvered the probe through the station's airless corridors. Hours passed as they worked tirelessly. James and Zaxlor made progress on the propulsion repairs, while Luna directed the probe's delicate operations. "We've got something," Luna announced, her voice tight with anticipation. The probe had retrieved several artifacts, including a device that bore an uncanny resemblance to their prototype. James felt a chill run down his spine. This can't be a coincidence. There must be a direct link between the civilization and the artifact we found on the station. As they examined the retrieved items, James's hand brushed against one of the devices. It hummed to life, projecting a holographic star map of the galaxy. Glowing points highlighted a network of stations scattered across vast distances. "It's some kind of transportation network," Zaxlor breathed, his alien features alight with wonder. Before they could fully process the implications of their discovery, the shuttle's long-range communications system crackled to life. A faint distress signal pulsed through the static. Luna quickly triangulated its origin. "It's coming from a nearby planet in this system." "James, this could indicate active technology or even survivors." James nodded, his mind racing. "We'll investigate once we got propulsion back online. For now, gather all the data you can on the planet's atmosphere and surface conditions." Suddenly, the shuttle sensors blared a warning. Multiple objects were approaching at high speed. "Automated defense drones," Zaxlor identified, his voice tense. James sprang into action, engaging the partially repaired propulsion system. The shuttle groaned as he executed evasive maneuvers, narrowly dodging the incoming drones. "Luna, Zaxlor, we need to adapt our shields," James called out. "Use what we've learned from the spatial distortion technology. It might give us an edge against their weapons." As they worked frantically to modify their defenses, James attempted to open communications with the drones. They transmitted messages of peace in various formats and frequencies, but to no avail. The drones closed in, their weapons charging. In a moment of inspiration, Zaxlor grabbed the activated artifact. "Use this to broadcast on their frequency." James didn't hesitate. He linked the alien device to their communications array and initiated the transmission. The effect was instantaneous. The drones powered down, drifting harmlessly past the shuttle. "It worked," Luna breathed, her silver skin glistening with relief. James nodded, his mind already moving to their next steps. "Let's finish those repairs and study these artifacts. We need to be ready for whatever comes next." As they resumed their work, the team couldn't shake the feeling that they stood on the brink of a discovery that would change the course of galactic history. The ancient station loomed before them, a silent sentinel holding secrets that had waited millennia to be uncovered. Uncovered, James took a deep breath, steeling himself for the task ahead. "Change of plans," he announced, turning to face Luna and Zaxlor. "We need to prioritize exploring the station. The planetary distress signal can wait." Luna's silver skin shimmered with concern. "Are you sure, James? There could be survivors down there." "I understand the risk," James replied, his voice firm. "But the potential knowledge and technology in this station could revolutionize everything we know about space travel. We can't pass up this opportunity." Zaxlor's multifaceted eyes gleamed with excitement. "I concur. The scientific value here is immeasurable." With their decision made, the team set about securing the shuttle and preparing for their expedition into the ancient structure. James retrieved the artifact they had collected earlier, hoping it might prove useful in navigating the station systems. As they approached the massive airlock, James held out the device. It hummed to life, projecting a holographic interface that quickly mapped to the station's docking controls. With a series of deft movements, James manipulated the hologram, and the airlock began to cycle. The shuttle glided into a cavernous hangar bay, dwarfed by the sheer scale of the alien architecture. As the massive doors sealed behind them, the bay pressurized with a hiss. Warning lights on their environmental suits flickered off, indicating a safe atmosphere. "Incredible," Luna breathed, her voice filled with awe as they exited the shuttle. "The station's life support systems are still functional after all this time." James nodded, equally amazed. "Let's not take any chances, though. Keep your suits on and stay alert." They made their way through a series of airlocks and decontamination chambers, each more advanced than the last. The team's suits, enhanced with reverse-engineered technology from the artifact, allowed them to bypass these security measures with relative ease. As they ventured deeper into the station, they found themselves in vast halls filled with machinery beyond their comprehension. Zaxlor moved from console to console, his manipulators dancing over alien interfaces as he worked to decipher their functions. "This is remarkable," the Zillion xenoarchaeologist exclaimed. "Based on these readings, I believe this station serves as a hub for the galactic transportation network we saw in the star map." Luna, meanwhile, had her attention focused on her handheld scanner. "I'm detecting traces of preserved organic material throughout the station," she reported, carefully collecting samples as they moved. "With proper analysis, we might be able to learn about the biology of the species that built this place." James found himself drawn to the station's propulsion and power systems. As he examined the intricate machinery, he noticed striking similarities to the prototype they had developed on the neutral space station. "This can't be a coincidence," he muttered, his mind racing with the implications. Their exploration led them to what appeared to be a central control room. As they entered, holographic displays flickered to life around them, bathing the chamber in an ethereal blue glow. James approached what looked like the main console, the artifact in his hand pulsing with energy. As he placed the device on the console, the room came alive. A shimmering hologram materialized before them, taking the form of a being unlike any they had encountered. "Greetings, explorers," the hologram spoke, its voice resonating with an otherworldly timbre. "I am the caretaker, the artificial intelligence tasked with maintaining the station." The team exchanged looks of shock and excitement. James stepped forward, his heart pounding. "We come in peace," he began. seeking knowledge and understanding. The AI's form shifted, adapting as it processed their language and technology. Your arrival has triggered the reawakening protocol, it explained. This station, along with its network, has been in hibernation for millions of years, waiting for a species advanced enough to utilize its systems. As the caretaker spoke, displays around the room came to life, showing star maps and schematics of unimaginable complexity. The precursors, as you might call them, faced extinction due to a catastrophic event, the AI continued. This network was designed to preserve their knowledge and technology for future species to discover. James felt a mix of excitement and trepidation as he realized the magnitude of their discovery. "Can you share this knowledge with us?" he asked, his voice filled with hope. The caretaker paused, its form shifting again. "Limited access can be granted," it replied. "However, full integration requires further verification of your species' readiness." As if on cue, holographic interfaces appeared before each team member. James, Luna, and Zaxlor began downloading crucial information on advanced propulsion, energy generation, and terraforming technologies. Their elation was short-lived, however. Alarms suddenly blared throughout the station, and the control room's exits sealed shut. "Security protocols have been activated," the caretaker announced, its tone neutral. "This is a standard procedure to protect critical systems from unauthorized access." James's mind raced as he realized they were now trapped, cut off from their shuttle, and with limited resources. He turned to address the AI, determined to find a solution, when another alert caught his attention. Long-range sensors have detected multiple ships entering the system, Luna reported, her voice tense. Energy signatures match various known species. "It seems news of our discovery has spread." As James processed this new development, he knew their actions in the coming hours would be crucial. They needed to convince the caretaker of their intentions, gain fuller access to the station's systems, and somehow manage the approaching forces from multiple species. With a deep breath, James turned to his team. "All right, we need to work fast. Luna, see if you can establish a secure communication link with the incoming human ships. Zaxlor, continue deciphering these systems. We need to understand as much as we can about the station's capabilities." As his teammates set to work, James faced the caretaker's hologram. "We need your help," he began, his voice steady despite the pressure. "Our presence here could either lead to a new era of cooperation or trigger a conflict that could tear the galaxy apart. Will you work with us to find a peaceful solution?" The AI's form shimmered as it processed James's words, the fate of multiple civilizations hanging in the balance of its response. Response. The AI's form flickered, its multifaceted visage seeming to consider James's words carefully. "Your request is..." "Intriguing," the caretaker replied, its voice resonating through the control room. "However, full cooperation requires further verification of your species' capabilities and intentions." James nodded, his mind racing. "I understand. What can we do to prove ourselves?" Before the AI could respond, Luna's voice cut through the tension. "James, we have a problem. The incoming ships are accelerating. ETA is now less than 2 hours." Realizing they were running out of time, James made a snap decision. He turned to Zaxlor, who was still working feverishly at one of the alien consoles. "Zaxlor, we need to bypass these security protocols. Can you help me rig up something using our equipment and these control panels?" The Zillion's multifaceted eyes gleamed with excitement. "A challenge worthy of my skills. Let us begin." Working together, James and Zaxlor began disassembling one of their handheld devices, integrating its components with the ancient technology of the station. James's fingers flew over the unfamiliar circuits, guided by intuition and the limited knowledge they'd gained from the artifact. As they worked, Luna continued to monitor the approaching ships while simultaneously analyzing the organic samples she collected. Suddenly, she gasped, "James, Zaxlor, you need to see this," she called out, her silver skin rippling with excitement. "I've isolated a viable DNA sequence. We could potentially clone a member of the precursor species." James looked up from his work, his eyes wide. "Are you sure?" Luna nodded, her expression a mix of awe and uncertainty. "Yes, but should we? The ethical implications are staggering." Before they could discuss further, a spark flew from the jerry-rigged device in James's hands. The control room hummed with energy, and suddenly new sections of the holographic display flickered to life. "It worked," Zaxlor chittered excitedly. "We have access to additional areas of the station." James wasted no time. "Luna, continue your analysis. Zaxlor, you're with me. Let's see what we can find." They raced through newly opened corridors, each turn revealing marvels beyond their wildest imaginations. They found chambers filled with strange artifacts, data storage units pulsing with information, and machinery whose purpose they could only guess at. As they explored, James's communicator crackled to life. "Cook, this is Captain Blackwood. Do you read?" James activated his comm, "Loud and clear, Captain. What's the situation?" "It's a powder keg out here, Cook." Blackwood's voice was tense. "Multiple species, all claiming rights to the station. If we don't find a peaceful solution soon, this could turn into a shooting war." James's mind raced, weighing their options. They couldn't let this technology fall into the wrong hands, but they also couldn't risk an interstellar conflict. Then his eyes fell on a massive control panel at the far end of the room they'd just entered. "Zaxlor," he called out, "does this look like what I think it is?" The Zillion scuttled over, his manipulators dancing over the controls. "Indeed, these appear to be the station's propulsion controls. Are you suggesting?" James nodded grimly. "We're going to move the entire station. It's the only way to buy us more time." As Zaxlor began the complex process of reactivating the ancient engines, James relayed their plan to Luna and Captain Blackwood. It was a long shot, but it was their best chance at preventing an immediate conflict. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the station. Panels slid open in the walls, revealing rows of sleek, metallic forms. Robotic sentinels, their weapons already charging. Defensive systems activated. The caretaker's voice echoed. "Unauthorized access detected." James drew his weapon, positioning himself between the robots and Zaxlor. "Keep working on those engines," he shouted. "I'll hold them off." The air filled with the whine of energy weapons as James dove for cover. He returned fire, his shots finding weak points in the robot's armor. But for every sentinel he disabled, two more seemed to take its place. "James," Luna's voice came through his comm. "I've found something. A sealed chamber with cryogenic pods. I think there might be actual precursors inside." James grunted as a blast scorched the wall beside his head. "Copy that, Luna. Stay put and secure that chamber. We'll rendezvous there once we get these engines online." As James fought off wave after wave of robotic defenders, Zaxlor worked frantically at the propulsion controls. The entire station began to vibrate, ancient systems groaning to life. "James," Zaxlor called out, his voice strained. "The engines are online, but I cannot gain full control. The AI is resisting our efforts." Realizing what he had to do, James reached for the artifact they brought from their shuttle. Its surface hummed with energy as he pressed it against his temple. "Caretaker," he called out, gritting his teeth against the sudden flood of information. "I'm establishing a direct neural link. We need to work together, or everything your creators built will be lost in the crossfire of a war." For a moment, there was silence. Then, the robotic sentinels froze in place. The holographic displays flickered, and the caretaker's voice filled the room, softer now, almost curious. "Very well, James Cook. Let us see what we can accomplish together." With the AI's cooperation, the station's engines roared to full power. The massive structure shuddered, then began to move. Outside, the approaching ships scattered in surprise as the ancient station accelerated away from them, its destination unknown. As they hurtled through space, James turned to Zaxlor. "We're not out of the woods yet. We need to secure as much of this technology as we can. And we need to decide what to do about those cryogenic pods." Zaxlor nodded, his alien features set in purpose. "Indeed, the challenges ahead are numerous, but the potential rewards are beyond measure." Together, they raced towards Luna's position, the future of multiple civilizations hanging in the balance of their next decisions. Actions. As James and Zaxlor raced towards Luna's position, the station lurched violently, throwing them off balance. Alarms blared throughout the structure, their urgent wails echoing through the ancient corridors. "What's happening?" James shouted, steadying himself against a wall. Zaxlor's manipulators danced over a nearby console. The jump to faster-than-light travel is putting immense strain on the station systems. We're facing a potential core meltdown. James tapped his communicator. "Luna, we've got a situation. Meet us at the central power hub." "On my way," Luna's voice crackled through the device. They sprinted through the twisting passageways, the station groaning and shuddering around them. As they reached the power hub, they found Luna already there, her silver skin reflecting the pulsing red emergency lights. "The core's temperature is critical," she reported, gesturing to a holographic display. "We need to stabilize it now, or we'll tear ourselves apart." James nodded grimly. "Zaxlor, can you reroute power from non-essential systems? Luna, help me with the coolant flow." The trio worked feverishly, their hands flying over alien controls as they fought to keep the ancient station intact. Sweat beaded on James's forehead as he manually adjusted coolant valves, the searing heat from the overworked systems beating against his skin. After what felt like hours but was likely only minutes, the alarms finally silenced. The station's vibrations settled into a steady hum. "Core temperature stabilizing," Luna announced, relief evident in her voice. James wiped his brow, allowing himself a moment to catch his breath. "Good work, team. Now, let's figure out where we—" His words were cut short as a section of wall suddenly slid open, revealing a hidden chamber. Inside, a sleek console pulsed with soft blue light. "Fascinating," Zaxlor chittered, scuttling towards a device. "This appears to be an advanced navigation system." James approached cautiously, the artifact from their shuttle humming in response to the alien technology. As he neared the console, it sprang to life, projecting a detailed star map into the air before them. "Look," Luna pointed, her eyes wide. "There's a pre-programmed destination." James studied the coordinates, recognition dawning on his face. "These match one of the locations from the original artifact we found on the neutral station." The team exchanged glances, each understanding the weight of the decision before them. "We should allow the station to continue its journey," Zaxlor suggested. "This could lead us to even greater discoveries." James nodded slowly. "Agreed. But we need to be prepared for anything. Luna, continue your work on the precursor DNA. Zaxlor, focus on translating the data we've acquired. I'll monitor our course and the station systems." As they settled into their tasks, days blended into weeks. The station hurtled through space, its ancient engines carrying them towards the unknown. Luna made significant progress in her makeshift lab, successfully cultivating a small sample of precursor tissue. "James, look at this," she called out one day, gesturing to a microscope. "The cellular structure is unlike anything I've ever seen. If we can unlock its secrets, the implications for medicine alone would be staggering. Meanwhile, Zaxlor's translations revealed a harrowing tale. The precursors faced a catastrophic event, he explained, his multifaceted eyes flickering with excitement and concern. It nearly wiped them out, forcing them to scatter across the galaxy. This station network was their failsafe, a way to preserve their knowledge and potentially reunite their species. As they neared their destination, long-range sensors detected signs of an inhabited solar system. James implemented a series of defensive measures, using the station's advanced technology to create energy shields and prepare countermeasures. "We're entering the system now," James announced, his hands steady on the controls despite the tension in his voice. As they penetrated deeper into the system, a fleet of ships appeared on their sensors. The vessels bore design elements strikingly similar to the ancient station. Descendants of precursor colonists? Luna wondered aloud. Before they could speculate further, the fleet surrounded them, weapons trained on the station. A tense standoff ensued, the fate of their mission hanging in the balance. James took a deep breath, steeling himself for what came next. "I'm initiating contact," he said, activating the station's communication systems. He transmitted a carefully crafted message, a series of mathematical sequences and scientific data designed to prove their level of advancement and peaceful intentions. Long moments passed in silence. Then a response came through, cautious but not openly hostile. The descendants allowed the station to approach their homeworld. As they neared the planet, multiple structures on the surface came into view, their architecture unmistakably similar to the ancient station. "It's a sanctuary," Zaxlor breathed in awe. "A repository of precursor technology and knowledge." Suddenly, planetary defense systems activated, targeting the station with frightening precision. James's hands flew over the controls, maneuvering the massive structure to avoid incoming fire. He activated the station's newly discovered defensive capabilities, creating a protective barrier around them. "We need to land," James decided, his teeth clenched. "It's our only chance to establish peaceful contact." He guided the enormous station through the atmosphere, using its advanced propulsion systems to slow their descent. The landing was rough, the station groaning and shuddering as it touched down on the alien world's surface. As dust settled around them, James, Luna, and Zaxlor donned their protective suits and gathered their most crucial findings. They made their way to the station's main airlock, each step heavy with the weight of what was to come. The airlock hissed open, and they stepped out onto the surface of the alien world. Before them stood a group of humanoid aliens, clearly descended from the precursors, but evolved over countless generations. The leader of the alien group stepped forward, brandishing an artifact identical to the one James and his team had found on the neutral station. As the two artifacts hummed in resonance, a bridge of understanding seemed to form between the two groups. James took a step forward, his heart pounding with a mix of fear and excitement. He raised his hand in a gesture of peace, preparing to address these living descendants of precursors. The fate of multiple civilizations hung on what would happen next. In the balance, James took a deep breath, steeling himself for this crucial moment. "We come in peace," he began, his voice steady despite the tension. "We seek to learn from you and share our knowledge for the benefit of all." The leader of the alien group stepped forward, his eyes scanning James and his companions with intense curiosity. "I am Korzal, Supreme Counselor of the Sanctuary World," he announced, his voice rich and resonant. "Your arrival marks a significant moment in our history." Korzal gestured towards a massive domed structure in the distance. "Come, we have much to discuss." As they followed Korzal, James marveled at the seamless integration of advanced technology and natural elements surrounding them. Crystalline structures pulsed with energy, while lush vegetation intertwined with sleek metallic surfaces. Inside the central governing facility, James, Luna, and Zaxlor found themselves facing a panel of alien officials. Corzal took his place at the center, his gaze intense as he addressed the team. For millennia, we have watched the galaxy, waiting for a species worthy of inheriting our ancestors' legacy, Corzal explained. Your piloting of the ancient station suggests potential, but we must be certain. He waved his hand, and a series of holographic displays materialized around them. You will face trials designed to test your readiness for our advanced technology. These challenges will assess your problem-solving abilities, ethical standards, and cultural achievements. James nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. We're prepared to prove ourselves, he said, glancing at Luna and Zaxlor, who nodded in agreement. The first challenge presented itself as a complex three-dimensional puzzle, representing an intricate power distribution system. James and Zaxlor worked in tandem, their fingers dancing across the holographic interface as they rerouted energy flows and optimized efficiency. As they tackled the engineering problems, Luna focused her efforts on the biological aspects of their tests. In a makeshift lab provided by their hosts, she continued her work on precursor DNA. James, Luna called out excitedly one day, her silver skin gleaming under the lab's lights. I've done it. I've successfully stabilized a viable precursor embryo. The news spread quickly, causing a stir among the descendant population. Whispers of concern and excitement rippled through the corridors of the governing facility. Meanwhile, Zaxlor immersed himself in the vast databases provided by their hosts. His manipulators moved with increasing urgency as he uncovered crucial information about the precursor's past. James, Luna, Zaxlor chittered, his multifaceted eyes wide with alarm. I've discovered something troubling. The catastrophic event that scattered the precursors. It's not over. There's an impending cosmic phenomenon that threatens not just this world, but potentially the entire galaxy. This revelation added a new layer of urgency to their mission. James redoubled his efforts, pushing himself to the limits as he tackled each new challenge presented by Corzal and his council. As days turned into weeks, tensions began to rise among the descendant population. A conservative faction, led by a stern-faced alien named Vexna, vocally opposed sharing their advanced technology with outsiders. Protests erupted in the capital city, forcing Corzal to implement heightened security measures. James watched with growing concern as barricades were erected and security drones patrolled the streets. The situation grew even more complex when several ships from various galactic factions entered the system, establishing an uneasy orbit around the sanctuary world. The Descendants' planetary defense systems kept the intruders at bay, but the fragile peace seemed ready to shatter at any moment. Recognizing the need for a diplomatic solution, James approached Corzal with a bold proposal. Supreme Counselor, he said, his voice firm with conviction, I suggest we form an interstellar alliance with the sanctuary world as its foundation. Together, we can face this cosmic threat and build a better future for all our peoples. Corzal's eyes narrowed as he considered James's words. An intriguing proposal, he mused, but it will face fierce opposition from Vexna and her supporters. As debates raged in the council chambers, James and his team continued their work. They began integrating their own technology with the advanced systems of the sanctuary world, creating hybrid solutions that showcase the potential for collaboration. Luna's progress with the precursor embryo reached a critical stage. In a secure laboratory, surrounded by curious descendant scientists, she carefully transferred the developing life form into an artificial womb. It's alive, she whispered, her voice filled with awe as the embryo's first heartbeats registered on the monitoring equipment. The achievement sparked intense discussions about the ethical implications and potential consequences of reintroducing the precursors to the galaxy. James found himself mediating heated debates between various factions, each with their own vision for the future. Zaxlor's research took an unexpected turn when he uncovered evidence that the impending cosmic phenomenon was not natural. It's the result of ancient precursor technology gone awry, he explained to a stunned audience of descendant scientists. We're not just facing a threat to survive. We need to actively counter it. As the final day of their trials approached, James, Luna, and Zaxlor prepared to present their findings, achievements, and proposals to the full Council of Precursor Descendants. The outcome of this presentation would determine not only the fate of the proposed alliance, but also the future of galactic civilization. James stood before the assembled council, acutely aware of the weight of the moment. Korzal sat at the center, his expression unreadable, while Vexna glared from her seat, her supporters murmuring behind her. Taking a deep breath, James began his address. Honored Council, we stand at a crossroads. The challenges we face are greater than any single species can overcome alone. But together, as James spoke, laying out their vision for cooperation and progress, he could see the council members' expressions shifting. Some nodded in agreement, while others frowned in skepticism. The fate of multiple civilizations hung on their next words. James's words hung in the air as he concluded his address to the council. The chamber fell silent, tension palpable as council members exchanged glances, their expressions a mix of hope and skepticism. Suddenly, the doors burst open with a thunderous crash. Armed insurgents poured into the room, their weapons trained on the council members. At their head strode Vexna, her face contorted with rage and triumph. "This farce ends now," she bellowed, her voice echoing through the chamber. "The sanctuary world will not be polluted by outsiders." James reacted instantly, grabbing Luna and Zaxlor and pulling them behind an ornate pillar as plasma bolts seared the air. The council erupted into chaos, with members scattering for cover amidst the barrage of weapons fire. "We need to get to our gear," James hissed, his mind racing through possible escape routes. He spotted a maintenance hatch partially hidden behind a tapestry. There! The trio crawled across the floor, using the confusion to mask their movements. James pried open the hatch, ushering Luna and Zaxlor inside before following, pulling the panel shut behind them. They navigated the cramped maintenance tunnels, the distant sounds of fighting echoing through the metal walls. After several tense minutes, they emerged in a storage area where their modified environmental suits and equipment were kept. As they donned their gear, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. Zaxlor interfaced with a nearby terminal, his manipulators dancing across the alien interface. "Multiple ships are entering the atmosphere," he chittered urgently. "The planetary defense systems are engaging them, but they're under Vexna's control now." Luna finished, sealing her suit, her silver skin glimmering beneath the transparent faceplate. "We need to find Korzal," she said, her voice tight with concern. "If Vexna staged a coup, he's in danger." James nodded, hefting a precursor energy weapon. "Agreed. Let's move." They made their way through the facility, using Zaxlor's intimate knowledge of the building's layout to avoid the main corridors where fighting was heaviest. As they approached the central control room, they encountered a group of Vexna's supporters. James reacted swiftly, firing his weapon with precision. The energy bolt struck the insurgents, temporarily paralyzing them without causing permanent harm. Luna and Zaxlor followed suit, clearing the path ahead. They reached the control room to find it barricaded. James approached cautiously, signaling his presence. "Korzal, it's James. We're here to help." After a tense moment, the door slid open, revealing Korzal and a handful of loyal supporters. The Supreme Counselor's usually composed demeanor was shaken, but his eyes burned with commitment. "James," Korzal said, relief evident in his voice. "Vexna's forces have taken control of most of the facility. We're cut off from the main systems." Luna immediately moved to a nearby console, her fingers flying over the controls. "I can bypass some of the security protocols," she said, her focus intense. "But we'll need to reroute through secondary systems." As Luna worked, James filled Korzal in on the situation outside. The Supreme Counselor's expression darkened at the news of the incoming ships. If those vessels land, the consequences could be catastrophic, he said gravely. Zaxlor, who had been interfacing with another terminal, suddenly let out a startled click. James, I've found something. Communication logs between Vexna and one of the approaching factions. She's been planning this for months. James's mind raced, piecing together the implications. She's not just staging a coup, he realized. She's selling out the entire sanctuary world. A distant explosion rocked the facility, sending tremors through the floor. Korzal steadied himself against a console. We're running out of time, he said urgently. What's our next move, James? James's gaze fell on a holographic display of the planet, the ancient space station they had arrived in, clearly visible on the outskirts of the city. An idea began to form. The station, he said, his voice gaining strength. If we can reach it and get it airborne, we can use it as a mobile command center. It has defenses that could turn the tide of this battle. Korzal nodded, understanding dawning in his eyes. It's risky, but it might be our only chance. How do we get there? James turned to Luna, who had just finished her work on the console. Luna, what's the status on the transport tubes? Offline in most of the facility, she replied, frowning. But I think I can reroute power to the section leading to the landing pad. It'll be tight, but it should get us close to where we need to go. Do it, James ordered. He turned to address the group. Everyone, get ready to move. We've got one shot at this, and we need to make it count. As Luna finalized the preparations, James caught a flicker of movement on one of the security feeds. His blood ran cold as he recognized Vexna, leading a group of heavily armed supporters towards their location. Time's up, he announced grimly. Let's go. The group rushed into the transport tube, the door sealing behind them just as the sound of weapons fire erupted in the corridor they had vacated. The tube hummed to life, propelling them through the facility at breakneck speed. As they hurtled towards an uncertain future, James gripped his weapon tightly, his mind already racing ahead to the challenges that awaited them. The battle for the sanctuary world, and perhaps the future of the cosmos, was about to enter its most critical phase as they emerged from the transport tube onto the landing pad. The cold night air hit them, a stark contrast to the stuffy confines of the facility. James scanned the area, his enhanced vision picking up movement in the shadows. We're not alone, he whispered, raising his weapon. As if on cue, a barrage of energy bolts erupted from the darkness. James pushed Korzal behind a storage crate, while Luna and Zaxlor took cover behind a nearby shuttle. We need to get to that station. James shouted over the din of weapons fire. He pointed to the looming silhouette of the ancient precursor station at the edge of the landing pad. Luna nodded, her silver skin gleaming in the flashes of energy bolts. I'll create a diversion, she said, her voice calm despite the chaos. She tapped a few commands on her wrist computer, and suddenly holographic projections of their group appeared all around the landing pad. The insurgents, momentarily confused, began firing at the decoys. James seized the opportunity, leading the group in a mad dash towards the station. Zaxlor's manipulators worked furiously on the station's access panel as they approached. Come on, James muttered, glancing back at the approaching insurgents who had realized their mistake. With a hiss, the station's entrance slid open. They piled inside, Zaxlor sealing the door behind them just as a volley of energy bolts impacted the hull. Inside, the ancient systems hummed to life, responding to their presence. James rushed to the control center, his hands flying over the unfamiliar interface. Korzal, I need your help with these systems, James called out. The Supreme Counselor joined him, his knowledge of precursor technology proving invaluable. As they worked to bring the station online, Luna monitored the external sensors. We've got company, she announced grimly. Multiple ships entering the atmosphere. They're not ours. James gritted his teeth, focusing on the task at hand. With a final command, the station shuddered to life. Anti-gravity generators engaged, lifting the massive structure off the ground. "We're airborne," James announced, a hint of relief in his voice. "Now let's see what this old girl can do." As the station rose into the night sky, the extent of the conflict became clear. The city below was a patchwork of light and darkness, with battles raging in various sectors. In the distance, the incoming ships loomed ever closer. James turned to address the group, his face illuminated by the glow of the control panels. "We need to retake control of the planetary defenses and stop those ships from landing. But first, we have a more immediate problem to deal with." He gestured to a holographic display showing multiple incoming projectiles. "Vexna's forces have launched missiles at us. We need to activate the station's defenses." Korzal stepped forward, his eyes scanning the ancient controls. "Here," he said, indicating a series of glyphs. "These should activate the energy shields." James nodded, inputting the commands. The station hummed with power as an invisible barrier sprang to life around them. The missiles impacted harmlessly against the shield, exploding in brilliant flashes of light. "Shields holding," Luna reported, her fingers dancing across a sensor panel. "But we can't stay on the defensive forever." "Agreed," James replied. He turned to Zaxlor, who was interfacing directly with the station systems. "What offensive capabilities do we have?" Zaxlor's multifaceted eyes flickered as he processed the information. "The station is equipped with a powerful energy cannon," he chittered excitedly. "It appears to be capable of targeting multiple objects simultaneously." "Perfect," James said, a plan forming in his mind. "We'll use it to target Vexna's ground-based weapons and the incoming ships. But we need to be precise. We want to neutralize the threat, not cause unnecessary destruction." As they prepared to engage, a transmission cut through their communications. Vexna's face appeared on the main screen, her expression a mixture of rage and desperation. "You fools," she snarled. "You have no idea what you're dealing with. The outsiders will be the death of us all." James stepped forward, his voice steady as he addressed her. "Vexna, it's not too late to end this peacefully. We're not here to destroy your way of life, but to save it, to save all of us." Vexna's eyes narrowed. "Pretty words, human. But I've seen the truth in the ancient records. The precursors brought ruin upon themselves with their arrogance. I won't let that happen to us." As she spoke, the sensors blared a warning. The incoming ships had begun their final approach, their weapons charging. James turned to his team, his expression resolute. "We're out of time. Luna, target the ships. Zaxlor, focus on the ground-based weapons. Korzal and I will coordinate our defense. Let's show them what the station can do." As the ancient weapon systems came online, James couldn't help but feel the weight of the moment. The fate of the sanctuary world, and perhaps the entire galaxy, hung in the balance. With a deep breath, he gave the order to fire, the station's energy cannons lighting up the night sky as they engaged the enemy forces. The battle for the sanctuary world had begun in earnest, and James knew that this was only the beginning of a much larger conflict. As energy beams lanced out from the station, striking their targets with pinpoint accuracy, he silently hoped that they could end this quickly and move on to the greater challenges that lay ahead.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel. And for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.